All right, guys. Moving on to our first, in the next section of the DVD, what we're going to be working on is going to be some specific techniques for creating, an effective close-range wall between you and your opponent. This is going to be one that if you've seen the Half Guard series, you've seen before, but I want to show how it kind of pertains to what we're doing today. So, the basic idea here is, again, I can engage Seth with my longest range weapons, which are the soles of my feet, but it makes a little bit more sense rather than being crunched up to give myself a little bit of extra room. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to understand the different ranges of our opponent's guard. So if Seth starts pressuring, he's likely, in order to have to pass, he's going to have to get through my feet. If he can't get my feet off of him, he's not going to be able to get around my guard. So very, very commonly, he's going to start to step up and he's going to start to push this foot down in between his feet. Now, with one knee up, one knee down, if you'll notice, my knee is the next line of my defense. And I'm making sure that it aligns with Seth. Drive forward, please. I'm like, all right, not too concerned here. Now, don't get me wrong. He could, of course, shrug my knee by, give me all kinds of trouble. But let's say I were here. Drive forward now. I'm like, ugh, that sucks. And I started to feel that in my knee. Ow. So we come back. Sorry. No, that'll happen. But anyway, the idea here is I want to make sure that I'm aligning my structure with my opponent. So he has four corners of his body that I care about, the two shoulders and the two hips, out of which stick 4 sticks, 2 legs and 2 arms. I want to try to cover as many of these corners as I reasonably can because Seth's pressure is effectively like water and my guard is like a dam. So if you'll notice, when Seth is down on both knees, I'm going to start to bring my knee from the center of his body to his far hip. My foot over here, if I'm a little bit flexible or if Seth's a little bit further away, I can play with it up on his shoulder. Alternatively, I can play with my knee on his shoulder and my foot down by his hip. Now, because we're about the same height and I've got relatively long legs from a build, my foot is going to be able to actually physically touch his hip. Sometimes it'll go like that, sometimes it won't. It's not really a big deal. Now, next thing, I have 2 hands. I have a free hand on the near side that could cover. I have a free hand on the far side that could cover. It's really not terribly relevant which one you decide to use. It's just that based on aligning my body this way or that, I give myself a certain set of options. And let's say, for instance, I'm here. I have freed up my right hand to block Seth's left cross face. I've started to be able to orient myself toward this side of his body and maybe able to go to deep half, maybe able to try to slide under and attack the leg lock on this side. Alternatively, if I'm a little bit more on my back, I have a free arm to try to attack Seth's arm, to push away. If this were for fighting, I would have a free hand up to be able to protect my head so I don't get any uglier than I already am. And the basic idea is that I'm controlling the gap between me and Seth. So can you pressure in, please? See how you can compress my hips in? My knees are coming towards my chest. Again, this should not be uncomfortable for me. If I'm extremely inflexible, hey, that's like saying, God, I'm just so weak. Well, go to the gym, man. Start to learn how to get a little bit stronger. If you're incredibly inflexible to the point where this is very uncomfortable, we need to make sure that we're stretching a little bit. Again, don't feel like you have to go from the equivalent of being a problem drinker to cold turkey sober in a weekend. Little by little by little, we're going to kind of creep in the right direction, go from where we are to where we want to be. But, Seth, you pressure in. I feel like I can hold him back. Notice, when he got a little bit closer, I simply transitioned from my hand, if we come back for a moment, because this is a long-range weapon, and Seth, if you slide that off your shoulder, I'm like, to my elbow. Do you feel like you're about to pass my guard?
No.
No, I feel fine here. If we come back, let's say pressure now. Say slides me back down the mat. Simply by bringing my hips into alignment, I've created a different structure that's going to be able to support him in other ways and it's going to open certain paths for me and deny others. So when I'm here, and Seth, if you drive in, I have my hips. Notice how I slide backwards down the mat. Now watch. I can make him fall. I can start to lift. I can give him different troubles here. But what I'm looking to do is control the 4 corners of Seth's body so that there's no way he can get around it. Unless, I don't care who Seth is. He can't pass my guard because, again, the best grapplers in the world are really, really good at doing the right thing. They're not physically magical. They don't, if you do the right thing to them, it's not as if it doesn't work. In my experience, when I've had a hard time with people, it's because I haven't been able to get my grips in the places that I want, haven't been able to align my structure if we rotate in the way that I want. Every single time I want to be here, Seth brings my knee to the middle so that he can redirect. If we started here 10 times in a row, I would expect to have my guard pass 10 times in a row, by almost anyone. But if I start here, and Seth is not allowed by the rules of our game to remove my defenses, can you run around, do anything you want, literally. I'm just staying relaxed and staying in contact with him. He can pop up if he goes backwards. This is where I'm like, oh, okay. I would start to engage him at a longer range. I'm building my wall further away. He comes back in close. I'm like, okay. I'm letting him back in, getting a little bit closer now. I want to make sure that I'm, again, not trying to use a long rifle at a face-to-face range. Could it work? Yeah, for sure, but it's not really what it's intended for. I also want to not try to use a knife at a super far range. Seth, go away. And I'm like, reverse De La Riva time. Not for long. It's about to be Ryan gets his guard pass time very, very quickly. So as we're setting up our half guard shell, guys, I want you to make sure that you're using range appropriate tools that are going to be addressing as many corners of your opponent's body as possible, and knowing that as long as you address those corners, your opponent really has no recourse other than trying to get rid of your defensive lines, assuming that it's an effective wall. An effective wall stops me from coming to get you 10 times out of 10. All right, guys, continuing with the half guard shell position, I want to show just, again, this is an example of a spot that Seth and I use, very heavily, in our game. But it's just one example of how you would, kind of align your defense and how your guard is meant to work. Because imagine you have, let's say you have a dam, all right? And there's water against the dam. And there starts to be a crack and water starts to leak through. What do? Well, I would say if you want the dam to not eventually break, you patch the hole. And then, oh no, there's water, there's a hole over there. What do? Patch the hole. How? Well, with whatever resources you have available. If there's 10 different holes in the dam, it's probably going to be very, very, very difficult to stop water from going through, and that's kind of how a guard pass works. The more that gets through, the more that will get through. So what I want you guys to start to think about is addressing your opponent's advances as early on as possible to prevent them from becoming an issue. And this is no different than any number of examples in history or real life or whatever. If someone's being a huge giant problem, kind of appeasing them for an extended period of time until they become a huge asshole, and then having to really set them straight is way less of a good idea than kind of putting your foot down early on. And it's the same type of thing here. So this sequence is again specifically for the shell guard, which if you want to learn more about, you can obviously check it out here. It's not the world's most complicated thing. You can probably figure out a lot of your own. But if you want to see a lot of in-depth usage of this, you can go and check out the half guard series. But the way that you would clean up these positions is the same in pretty much every guard. So here we are. Right now I'm covering 3 out of the 4 corners of Seth's body. I have 1, 2, 3. And the 4th one is there. So I'm not going to do anything, Seth. What's the easiest pass for you right now? Exactly. You can grab my head. And notice, Seth didn't pass my guard all at once. If we come back for a second, he latched onto me. So I'm like, haha, got him. He latches on, falls. Now, if you'll notice, I have 2 corners of his body because this one is no longer very useful. He's using his right hand to take away. Uh-oh, I've lost that one. And finally, the last little corner, if we rotate a little bit. So we go this way. See how my knee is obstructing him? He's actually not past my guard. I'm actually chilling right now for about 0.2 seconds until what? Boom. Uh-oh, I'm in a lot of trouble. So, let's try a different one. All right. Here we are again. I'm like, all right, where's the hole in my guard now? Right around my knee. Well, how did I know you were going to do that? Well, okay, do me a favor, grab my head. All right, do me a favor, get around that left knee. All right, Seth being an intelligent opponent is predictable. Now, the downside of predictable Seth is predictable, but he's also going to do the moves right, so it's hard to stop if he gets ahead. Once he gets in there, it's like, crap. And now he swims inside, maybe he can grab my head. I still don't have my guard pass, believe it or not, if we rotate. My left side, don't get me wrong, this sucks, and I would expect to have my guard passed momentarily, but at least unless Seth really, really drops the ball, which every now and then will happen, but not the sort of thing I would expect. It's like, let's say, for instance, 3 times in 100 I managed to get myself out of here. The other 97 times Seth mashes me into the ground. So I'm controlling still the left hip of his body, or rather the right hip of his body with my left foot. Can you drive your hips towards into me?
No.
So that's actually still effective. Now, the downside is he could drive his shoulders, shift his hips, get his underhook, give me all kinds of problems. Now we have issues. But the basic idea here is based on where the holes in your defense exist. So now my knee's low. Where are you going to go? Well, he gets on top of that hip, and he's going to use this handhold or foothold, or however you want to think of it, to start to climb the rest of the mountain that is my guard. It doesn't really matter where you make your first grip. It's like, oh, I'm going to climb this wall. I'm like, oh, it's there. Oh, it's there. Oh, it's here. It's just that you start to get a hold of the things, and then you can start to move your way up, and you're reading your way through the climb. And guard passing is no different, and guard defense is no different. What I want to do is become I want to become almost an escalator that funnels him back down out of anything. As soon as he takes a step up, I'm like, hey, get back down there. So what we're doing is recognizing that in this particular situation, I've got a left knee blocking Seth's shoulder. I've got a right knee blocking Seth's hip. I've got a left foot. This is the least important, component of the defensive wall, is on his near side hip. And now I have two arms to take care of the last issue, which is his left shoulder and the extension of it, which is his left arm, which can grab my head. So what we can do here is recognize that I can block or I can block. Right now, can you grab my head?
No.
Unless he can start to get around my defense, he's not going to be able to do much. If you start to defeat my left knee and I do nothing about it, notice how Seth comes close to me. If we come back, Seth defeats that knee, but I have a sweeper. This is my general all-purpose help yourself bailout safety valve. I escape my hip and I replace. So one more time, he pulls that out of the way. I say, stop that. I escape my hip and I replace. If I'm Mr. Flexible guy, if we rotate, and again, a lot of people seem very flexible, like at the high level, but and don't get me wrong, plenty of people are flexible, but a lot of it more is, once you reach the black belt level, competitively, is these people are putting their hips in the right position that's making them seem more flexible than they are, because rather than having to rely on doing something like this to get my foot back in, Seth pulls my knee out of the way and I'm like, all right, this is actually all I did was raise my knee to a normal height. There's nothing, I'm not warmed up and I can put my foot behind my head, but I have no need of doing anything like that. Whereas if Seth's super close and I don't move my hip, I'm like, this is garbage. This is absolute garbage. Whereas if we were to come back and he starts to drive in, I'm like, I stiff arm. Is this pushing you?
No.
It's simply marking him. It's a stick that keeps him away. And I'm like, let me put that all back there. This has the same effect that my knee did. So what I want you guys to think about doing is using your left arm in this situation to clean up whatever's going wrong. One more last option here that Seth has is going to be stuffing this down. So I'm going to check, and I'm going to check on his sleeve or on his wrist. Can you, right now, what would you do if I didn't check this sleeve?
I would bring my knee into this pocket.
And why would you do that?
To get closer to you and get over this obstruction.
Absolutely. And now he's also got a free hand to grab me, and I'm like, crap. He's gotten through 2 out of the 3 major, checkpoints that he has to pass through to get through my guard. But if he stuffs that knee down, I go, hey, stop that, and I mark it. Even if you get your knee in position, which is going to be difficult, can you get your hand out?
No, I can't go forward.
Right. Am I pushing you?
No, it's just a check.
It's a check. So bring your hand forward, please.
I can't.
Take your hand backward. I'm like, okay, great. And I can still readjust my hip and replace my defense. So this is simply, one kind of, this is more of an example sequence, and this is exactly what I do to defend my guard in this position. But I want you guys to think about utilizing your guard in whatever positions that you have to use it in, and thinking about, all right, so what are the linchpins of my safety here? What happens if this guy grabs me here? Does it matter? What happens if this guy grabs me there? Does it matter? Where do you feel, they grab me and I don't care? Where else do you feel where they grab and you go, oh shit, this is not good? What if there's 3, let's say 5 points in your guard that they have to control, that they could control? What if they only get 1 of them? Does it really matter? Maybe not. What if they get 2? All right. What happens if they get 3? If they get the 3 out of the 5, now you're almost certainly going to have your guard passed by somebody good. So what I want you guys to be thinking about is, again, if this position resonates with you, fantastic, use it. I really am a huge believer in it. Felipe Costa was the first person that showed me this position years ago, and it's been a cornerstone of my game ever since. But even if you don't use that, use this kind of as a little bit of a cipher for figuring out how to defend your guard in a systematic method that's going to allow you to understand the level of risk and exposure that you have at any given situation. And then from there, what you're going to be able to do is start to think about your defense in a very logical, mathematical, step-by-step fashion that's going to allow you to know what to do under any given circumstances. That doesn't always mean that I'm going to be able to stop you, but if you did pass my guard, I should be able to go and reverse engineer and say, this is how it all went down, this is when it went wrong. If only I would have changed this little detail, I would not have had my guard passed, And then, oh, the fact that I got cross-choked from the mount or something like that is actually a lot less relevant than you might think. Because, yeah, that may cause issues of its own, but if you'd have never passed my guard, would you have been in the mount? No. Would you, if you hadn't been in the mount, would you have been able to cross-choke me? No. The entire match or the entire fight could look very, very different just based on a small little detail adjustment. All right, guys, the next position that we're going to be covering is going to be the seated guard. And this is another close range position that you're going to use all the time. You know, again, this is used by every high-level jiu-jitsu guy, particularly no-gi. And, you know, obviously the most prolific user of it is probably Marcelo Garcia. But it's a position that's important for everybody. And now, you know, as we discussed, you know, a little bit earlier on in the series, you know, there are certain positives to it. Of course, I'm much more mobile. I have all 4 weapons pointed at you, 2 hands, 2 feet. I can do a lot more. Downside, all right, you know, my back is off the mat. My head is a little more exposed. The more experienced you are, the safer it is to play a position like this. Now, of course, that cuts both ways. The only way you get good at playing a position like this is by doing it, which means you're going to get guillotined a bit, you're going to get your back taken a bit, whatever. You know, you'll eventually get to the level where it's difficult for people to do that to you. Now, when playing the seated guard, you can do it a number of different ways. You'll see people playing straight up here with both feet and both hands kind of squared up on you. You know, there's no cheat to one side or the other. You'll see people with a little bit of a longer style position, almost as if this were, you know, I was about to do my technical stand-up that we covered right in the beginning, getting my base underneath me. You'll see people playing sometimes, like I'll play like this periodically. Why? Because I can drag and do everything. I can actually roll up over top of my knees sometimes and double leg people if they're not careful. And I can raise up real quickly and snatch a guillotine. It goes a little bit beyond the scope of what we're discussing here today, but the idea is simply that you can align yourself in a number of different ways, but the key is that it's structurally sound under each circumstance. So how does this all play out? All right, now step 1 with the seated guard, as most of you guys know, is see I'm completely upright, you know, like a tree. If I'm here and I get pushed a little bit, I fall backwards to the ground. If I want to make sure that I'm prepared to receive force and not fall over, whichever direction the force is coming from, I'm going to angle myself. Notice how my chest is out. It's very important. A very common mistake in the seated guard is to sit here like a little golem and be out of position, hunched over. You're not physically powerful like that. It's not a good idea. You want to have your chest out. That doesn't mean that you always need to have your chest out, but you know, you want your spine in alignment. Chest out also does not mean flexing. A massive problem that more people than not that I roll with have is that they're way, way, way too tense. You know, you can't bully people from the bottom position. Anyone that you're bullying from the bottom position is not very good. So who cares about beating them? I would say stay relaxed. Be ready to move. You can absolutely win. You can turn the tables. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. But stay relaxed and responsive. So my chest is filled out, but I'm absolutely not flexing or anything like that. And when I grab you, I don't grab you like a fucking death grip and I don't want to fall off the side of a building. I'm just gripping you and I'm ready to move and adjust, and I'm using structure to control my strength and my positioning. I'm not physically tense. Again, I almost can't overstate that. So here we are. I'm leaning forward a little bit. My head is up. Now, every now and then you'll see people align. My general position of my head is up. That doesn't mean it has to be always completely bowled up neck as if you're trying to fight off a collar tie. But the idea is that you don't want to have your head looking down. This is not where we want to be. Think about being upright as possible with your elbows close in and, again, not flexing. Now, having your spine in alignment and having your hips in the proper angle is going to do a lot for you. So watch this. So here I am. And I'm kneeling. Seth, can you lean on me, please? So I got my hand here, and I lean on Seth. Yeah, push backwards. Try that again. This works, right? I'm like, shit. All right, well, hold on. All right, watch this. I'm going to stick my ass back now. Now watch this. By aligning my body and making my arm an extension of the rest of my body, the rest of my back, I become very, very, very powerful. When I'm like this, significantly less so. When I bring my hips all the way underneath me, that's like if I was standing straight up and someone shoved me, I'm going to stumble backwards. If someone was about to shove me, what would I do? I'd stand up, put my foot behind me, and lean towards them. Jiu-jitsu, in my experience, is not terribly complicated. All you have to do is think about the base positions behind it all. So here we are. What I want to do is be able to receive force without getting knocked over. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to have the stability and the calm and the comfort that I'm going to need to launch all of the offense from my guard that we're going to do later on. So, Seth, can you lean forward on me? Wow. Can you drive hard? I'm chilling. Watch this. Just by having my hips in the proper position, I can block him with my head no differently than I would in a wrestling scenario or anything like that. Now watch this. Okay, lean on me. See, I'm driving my ass into the ground is my structure. Now watch this. Just by rounding my back out a little bit, I went from being able to easily hold back a grown person that was leaning on me to feeling like, oh my God, Seth is strong, or man, I feel weak. Yeah, if you feel weak, it's because you're in weak position. The answer would not be more bench press and stronger, triceps. It would be lock myself out in a way that holds him back with no issue. Now remember, you can do this with your hand, do this with a collar tie, you can do this with your head. I'm changing ranges in each case. Later on, we're going to get into how to shoot a single, how to shoot a double from there, how we can start to, re-attack and do all kinds of different things. But feeling comfortable in your initial guard position is very, very important. So head up, chest out, butt behind your shoulders, stay relaxed, and use your structure. Again, why do I say relaxed? Because Seth and I are drilling, and Seth's not trying to beat me up or anything like that. So if I'm super tense and out of position, I may be able to hold him back a little bit. If you're relaxed and out of position, nothing you ever do will ever work, which is great because it'll force you to fix it. It will highlight in your mind. It will stand out every single time you screw up, and you'll go, oh, well, that needs to be changed, as opposed to, well, it was working when I was drilling, and now it's not working when he's fighting. Well, that's because when you were drilling, you were going apeshit, and he was not. And now that you're fighting and you're going apeshit and he's actually trying to beat you up, it's not going to work. So make sure that you find your structure. That's your most important thing that you need to do in this position. And eventually what we're going to start to do is be able to transition. I'm like, oh, I'm in my shell. I'm like, he's backing away a little bit. I'm like, okay. I'm here. He starts to drive in. I'm like, oh. I can kind of back into my shell position. I can scoot back out, readjust my hips, start to feel calm and cool in these spots. And what it's going to allow me to do is, again, successfully transition from wall to wall and be able to launch my counter offense. All right, guys. The next thing that we're going to do with the seated guard is going to kind of address, what our opponent's going to be looking to do. Now, based on how I align myself, my opponent should attack a little bit differently. Let me rephrase. An intelligent opponent will attack differently. If it's no different, if you watch the NFL, if you watch any strategic game, if you look at war, your opponent, if he's worth a damn, is always going to base what he's doing on what you're doing. And if I don't have any knowledge of you and you don't have any knowledge of me, okay, that's one thing, and we kind of come out with a little bit of a general strategy. But the more specific knowledge I have of how you are aligned, the more I should be able to tailor my offensive strategy to defeat what you're throwing at me. So, Seth, can I borrow it? If you're on bottom, please. Seth can play the seated guard squared up like he is. Perfect. Or you can play it one side or the other. See how he's starting to face the camera and he's, kind of over here. Right now he has a clear, strong side. Right now I've got a front side, but when Seth aligned, he has a clear, strong side, his chest, and a clear, weak side, his back. Knowing nothing other than just that people are more dangerous in the front because they got predator eyes here as opposed to prey eyes here, I say, all right, where am I going to go? Assuming Seth wasn't going to stop me. Say I go behind, right? Simply doing this is going to funnel me where? Always around. Now, ideally, this comes wide enough that he's forcing me into the center. Seth wants to force me into this defense because let's say, actually, Seth, you start to pass for a second, man? All right, so here we are, and I'm like, all right, cool. If I'm here, see how I'm squared up to the front side? I was cheated my defense over to the right, but there's nothing, but Seth is outside my left defensive wall. I want to position my defensive wall outside of other guy, always. There is no reason for me to let this person in, well, let me rephrase, unless I'm just suckering him in and I think that I can play around with this person, which every now and then you can get away with. But assuming that, that your opposition is strong, there's no reason for you to let this person, grant this person passage around your guard. So here I am. I make my defensive wall around Seth. Now, what he's going to be trying to do is get me to commit to the inside so that he can go around. But right now, would you rather move to your right, Seth, over here, or to your left?
Being funneled more to my left.
Being funneled to the left. He's going to feel like he should go to the left. Now, that's great. Let's say, for instance, I scoot over this way, and I'm like, oh, fantastic. Now you should probably feel like you're going to your right. But let's say I made a miss, I overcommitted. See how my knee started to cheat inside here? Rather than being squared up, or better yet, flared out just a little bit, it cheated to the inside, and Seth can collapse it. Now I know exactly where he's going. Bad news. Now that can happen. It's not the end of the world, but I have to understand where my opponent's goals are. So if you can play squared up on this person, that's great. If you can keep bringing them to the inside, that's great. It's going to be kind of, you're aligning the strongest muscles in your body and your defense and all that good stuff with this person. But if he starts to come back around to the outside, I need to be able to address that, and that's actually what we're about to move on to in the bulk of the series, is going to be addressing a situation where my opponent has started to defeat my guard and he started to get around my legs, and I'm going to have to reply in a little bit of a non-traditional manner. So again, right now I'm in great position. I'm squared up with other guy. This is great. All right, notice when I decided to pick a side, when I decided to cheat, I posted my hand and I scooted to try to make sure that I funneled him in. I didn't just go, okay, cool. Because Seth immediately moves around the outside. Bad news for me. I post and I scooted to the outside. Now I can play. If I want to go the other way, I'll switch my hips. So again, I'm posting my hand, moving my butt to where my hand is, transitioning my defense. Moving my butt to where my hand is, transitioning my defense if I'm going side to side. I could play a little bit more to my back when I'm all the way on my side, because this is actually implying that Seth might drive in, and I'm like, okay, I'm into more of my shell position. If I needed to square up, I would have to replace, again, my hand, because this is the back line of my base, my left hand. I'd have to replace it with my ass so that I can start to sit forward and move around and do all that other stuff when I want to bring my second weapon to bear. So anyway, I just want you guys to start to think about how your alignment is, what it's encouraging in other guy. And here's the other thing. If you're fighting like an untrained or a low-skill opponent, they're really unpredictable. Like, who the hell knows what they're going to do? But on the upside, what they do is so out of position and so poor that it usually doesn't really matter. So let's say, for instance, Floyd Mayweather. He's pretty predictable. I'm not saying I could do anything about it, but the idea is he's predictable because he does the right thing. He stays in position. He doesn't do like spinning double backflip, back fists. But everything he does so well. God help you trying to stop it. So think about it, like that. And, the higher you climb the competitive ladder in terms of the quality of your opposition, the more what you do is going to really impact what they do. And it's something to start to consider as early on as possible. All right, everybody. Now we're moving into the specific kind of ways that we're going to be utilizing our counter offense now that we've been able to set up our wall. But I want to start to discuss something really first. It's just a very, very important idea, how to lift somebody up properly. Obviously when we're trying to lift something, as we discussed earlier in the series, you get underneath it, you do that, and it's like, oh, that sounds cool, that's awesome, that's fantastic. What do you mean? I'm like, all right, well, this is what I mean. So we're going to start with close guard, because this one takes a little bit more finesse. And then if you can learn how to do this, you can most certainly learn how to do the De La Riva one. I'm going to start with Seth's sleeves, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my hips underneath of his. And again, I just can't overstate how important it is to be relaxed. Again, if you think you're relaxed, you're probably not. Relax further. So when I'm here, what I'm going to start to do is watch. I'm going to keep my guard closed, and I'm going to pull Seth's hips right on top of mine. So big problem is lifting something that's in front of you. So this is you, this is it, doesn't really work. Lifting something directly over top of you, very easy. So here's what I'm going to try to do, is I like to do easy stuff, because easy stuff is easy. So what I do is, rather than creating an incredibly difficult situation, going like, trying to lift this dude up, which is, again, how I was taught the sweep. Well, not properly. I remember the first person to teach me the sweep properly was Chris Moriarty, who was really, really good back in the day and also still now. But if we rotate, I'm pulling Seth's hips over top of mine. So watch, I'll pull with my guard. This is just a drill for right now. This isn't necessarily how I set it up. 1, 2, and I bring his hips over top. See how I'm able to use my spine to lift him? I'm making Seth post. So what I can start with in the beginning, if I really want to just do this in the beginning, is I'll hold his lapels. Do you feel like pulling you super hard?
Not with your arms. I'm
not pulling him down, because if I pull him down, I block myself. 1. Okay, do me a favor. Imagine I had your sleeves and just roll over when we do this. Yay! It's actually very, very, very easy. What you're looking to do is this. You can make this as low amplitude or as high amplitude if you don't like the other person and they're being a jackass as you want. Bring this person in, lift, roll backwards over the shoulders. When I used to try to do this, I couldn't do it without spiking the other person. That sucks. And also, very quick lesson: if you're doing this to someone that has a limited amount of jiu-jitsu experience and a lot of wrestling, don't. Unless, again, you don't like them, because they're very, very, very likely to land directly on their face when they try to use their head to post. So, I'm extending with my hips, pulling to slide my hips under, and yanking Seth's hips over top of my own. Once that happens, I'm going to push his hands towards him, forcing him to duck his head, well, rather encouraging him to duck his head. If Seth intentionally posts on his forehead, there's nothing I can do for him. But 1, 2, and I move him over. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that his hands don't touch the ground. When you pull me forward and I go, I'm going to fall, I bring my hands in front of me. Well, if you were to go, Ryan, push me, and then I go, oh shit, and then you snap your fingers and magically my arms disappear, I would do a front roll. That's what we're doing here. To do this with low amplitude and not hit people is ideal, but it takes a little bit of practice. Or really not bash people. What you want to do is 1, and I can chuck Seth over very, very, very gently. If you really don't like the person and they deserve it, don't worry, I'm not going to do it to them. I'm going to get you all the way up in the air on my shins, and I'm going to chuck you up in the air as high as I can. I may even put my feet on you. I'm going to kick you really hard, and I'm just going to let you go. And then what will happen will happen. So that's kind of the one where you're like, best of luck to you. And then you kind of see how it plays out from there. I'm not recommending doing that, but it's like a heel hook. It's nice to have in your arsenal, you know, just in case the other person's being a lunatic and they need to be straightened out. All right, guys, the next method for lifting that we're going to use is going to be the De La Riva guard. You know, again, we've discussed why lifting our opponent's important. You know, again, this is going to make the other guy want to back off of you in many cases because, Seth, when you start getting lifted up, how do you feel?
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. When people lift me up in the air, it makes me concerned because the second that you lift me up all the way in the air, my safety is very directly under your control. And most people are great. And now, granted, in class, my safety, your safety is my number one concern. I never want to hurt you. In a tournament, your safety is your concern, as long as I'm operating within inside of the rules. Same thing in a fight. Like, I don't want to see you get injured, but if you do, as long as I'm inside of the rules, well, we all knew that that was a possibility. I've been hurt in tournaments before. You know, anyone that takes this stuff seriously, you know, you're responsible for your own safety. The referee as well. Again, I'm not suggesting do anything outside of the rules, but if you pick me up in the air and throw the shit out of me and I go bang onto my shoulder and hurt myself, or rather get hurt, hey man, as long as you didn't intentionally spike me on my head, there was nothing, you know, kind of inappropriate that you did. In class, again, you're always going to try to be safe with your partner, but again, in tournaments, I don't like to have my safety at risk at all. Same thing in fight. I want to get lifted up as few times as possible because most times when someone gets slammed onto the ground, nothing happens. Other times, bad things happen. So what we're going to try to do is utilize this lift, which again, we're about to go over in the last lift that we did, to kind of create the basis for a lot of our offense. So, this time, we're going to be in the De La Riva guard. And you can lift with any number of sleeve configurations, but what I need to make sure that I'm doing is I am keeping structure, as we discussed, with my legs. So if you drive in, I'm here. Do you feel like I'm pretty stable?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. My knees are towards my chest, my feet, my shins and my femur in line. We're not like this, not here. I'm completely up and down in the same way that I would do a leg press or a squat. So here I am in my De La Riva, and again, I can lift from any number of positions, but the basic idea, we'll show it from De La Riva because it's going to be in, you know, the more likely position you're going to be getting people up in the air for. I'm going to start by bothering Seth's base. Notice, again, my knee is in line. Here, push my knee down. Creates bad pressure on my hip. Here, my knee is straight up and down. Even if you push into it, it goes into me, so I'm fine. And I go into the ground, so it's pretty stable. I'm extending, sitting up. Now, if Seth drives back into me, notice how there's a hole behind me? He can push me all the way back to my back. I'm like, oh man, that sucked. Unless, of course, I use the momentum of him pushing into me to help me slide my hips underneath. Because right now I can't lift Seth up because I can't get his upper body over me. But when I sit up, aha, he goes up very, very easily. If we rotate a little, this is super easy. Notice how my foot's out on this knee. It's not wrong. Here is going to be a little easier. You know, it's going to take a little less precision in on the hip. You'll find what works best for you. But what I want you guys to do now is the exact same motion. I'm going to bring Seth forward, and I'm going to bring his arms around. You can sometimes punch them down. You can sometimes swing them wide like you're flapping your arms like a bird. The basic idea is I'm making sure his hands don't touch the ground. If I do it too soon, he's going to drop his weight backwards. So what I want to do is I'm going to extend, and again, I get more bang for my buck pushing on his knee than I do on his hip. So in the initial extension, we go here. He pulls in. I suck my knees in. Turn them all the way over, and a lot of times you're going to land yourself in the mount. Sometimes you're going to land in the open guard. If Seth sees the sweep coming, not early enough to stop it, but early enough to go, and not go zam into the ground, there's a real good chance, you know, he's going to recover his guard partway over, stuff my knees down, something like that, get me back into his open guard. But the key here, again, is I'm creating something that Seth doesn't want. Because what would we talk about in the beginning? I'm like, hey, Seth, your money or your life? He's like, well, how much money? I'm like, $50. He's like, well, that's a lot of double cheeseburgers, but here you go, here's $50. So all I have to do is threaten dropping him on his head, and he's very, very, very likely to give me some space. Because as we discussed before, here's my lift. I'm like, all right, get in passing position. All right, Seth's in good position. I'm like, I'm going to sit up. Oh, and I want to get my offense going. I'm going to plot to you. I'm going to do stuff. Not really, man. If I can start to extend and push him and sit up, and then he jumps backwards, I'm like, aha. Now I can start to sit up and get my offense going, but it was because I was starting to able to get him out of position, and anytime he drives into me, I just say, thanks, buddy. I pull his head over my head and look for my sweep. So by being able to create this kind of catch-22 scenario, that's what's going to allow me to move Seth around in the way that I want to and really get my offense going. All right, everybody. So the next sequence that we're going to walk through is going to be continuing to, again, transition from wall to wall, layer to layer of our guard, attempting to, you know, slide underneath and lift our opponent, putting him in that kind of catch-22 where I'm asking him a question about, you know, how he's going to look to defend himself here. And we will kind of see how it plays out. So we'll start in spider guard. And again, you know, a lot of people play their spider guard in different ways. Again, I don't have a great spider guard by high-level standards, but it's something, a position I definitely use. And when I'm moving around and I'm trying to create different openings and whatnot, trying to move Seth, play defense, do whatever you want. Okay, so I'm here, I'm like, okay, I'm like, maybe transitioned from one layer to another. And again, I elected to do that, so I let him in a little bit closer this time, as opposed to maybe, again, Seth fighting his way through my spider guard, which could also happen. I'm controlling my opponent's grips. I'm going to start to bother him. I'm sitting up. Again, I'm putting him in that little bit of that catch-22 where I'm saying, hey, you want to stop me from sitting up? He says no. I'm like, all right, well, I'll be able to do it. I'm going to get here anyway if he doesn't stop me. So when I do sit up and Seth says no, I start to lift. He drops back. Immediately, I'm passing his sleeve. If we rotate a little bit, I'm passing his sleeve and staying up. Now from here, I can look to control his lapel. It's not wrong to be down here, but I want to try to get as over top of Seth as I possibly can. It's important to notice this foot here. I can sit here and I can control because we actually have a kind of a 2-count series here. When I control and I start to bring my head in, I'm looking to get up as high as I possibly can on Seth's lapel. So if you stay up tall, I'll bring him all the way down. I can even really double up on the lapel and reach. And sometimes you can take your left hand far away from me, but I'm probably going to be able to reel it back in. Now from here, all I'm going to do is, Pedapano was always great at this attack back in the day. I'm posting on the front of Seth's knee with a cupping grip of my foot, and I'm going to dump him right onto his shoulder. This is another one of those ones that you can really mess somebody's shoulder up with. You got to be careful. My head stays in close position. I transition to my knee, and I lock myself into the twisted mount position. Now, once I get all the way up there, I actually have a series of options. So again, we were in spider, we went all the way in, I managed to sit all the way up, I controlled Seth's far sleeve, and I reached up high. Again, I dump him all the way to the floor. If we rotate so you guys can see, I go into twisted mount, I'm settling my base low. Cut underneath me, move me please. I'm fine, right? If I'm here and I'm, hey, maybe I can make something happen. Maybe I can counter that, but I shouldn't have been moved in the first place. So I'm keeping my head blocking in between mine and Seth's, making sure that he's not going anywhere. And from here, we can go to any number of different things. Arm triangle, the back, you know, you name it. Seth's in a rough spot. But what happens if instead of this option, I'm actually able to slide my shin in front of Seth's? So I'll rotate, I'm trying to attack, I can look for omoplata on either side, push, I'll pull, lift him up, he doesn't let me, I come back up. If I rotate here, notice, what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to check his knee with my hand, and I'm going to switch my foot. The reason I check his knee with my hand is I don't want him stepping around real quick, because initially, Seth, can you step around to bother me and kind of square up for your knee through pass?
No.
It's very difficult. If I'm here, can you? For sure. It's not the end of the world, but this is something that can start happening, and I can get myself into an awkward situation if Seth understands how to defend, because he can get an overgrip. And yeah, I can always try to dump him over. There's a lot of ifs and questions and whatnot that can happen. But what I'd like to do is, as I'm going here, controlling, I go, let me check this guy. Keep my head close, not down, always maintaining posture. I switch, and I get my shin in front. Now from here, when I come up and I get Seth to post, I'm going straight to the back, and here's how. I'm going to dump Seth over his head and force him to use his free hand. As soon as he does, I'm letting go. It's important I let this grip go, and I'm shooting his leg out. Sliding my hook in on the back, climbing in. I can look to attack the neck in a number of different ways, depending upon how Seth defends. If you'll notice, because my arm was underneath, I could have potentially had an arm triangle. So this is actually my personal favorite. Anything that goes directly to the back is always a great move. It kind of cuts to the chase a little bit. So I'm controlling, doing whatever I can do, trying to attack omoplata. Seth's not having it. All right. Try to lift him. Open his lapel, get right onto his neck, slide my hips behind his head, and he's in a pretty rough spot. So, again, guys, you're going to see there's really a great deal of offensive options from your guard once you're able to securely stop your opponent from passing. So as long as I'm able to keep him in kind of these catch-22 style situations that really limit my exposure and maximize his, it's only a matter of time before I'm successful. All right, guys. Our next position we're going to show is going to be one that I learned and have seen used many times, and it's something that I've actually had a good deal of success with at a certain point, thanks to Michele Nicolini, ADCC champ and world champ from Checkmat. And anyway, what we're looking to here, if you notice, Seth's weight is evenly distributed. Kicking his feet off the ground is going to be extremely difficult. Can you do me a favor and stand on one foot, Seth? All right. Guess what I can do to this leg now because it's weightless? I can move it. And now I'm like, all right, can you stand on the other foot? I'm like, why can't I move that leg? Oh, wait, I can move this one. Why? Because it's weightless. Doing easy things is easy. Lifting heavy things is hard. That's why we call them heavy. So what I want to do if I want to lift or move something is I convince other guy that it's a real good idea to make his leg light so that I can move it. And then once I move it, I try to make him fall into the hole as we described earlier on in the series. So I'm in my open guard, and I can do this from De La Riva. I can do this from Spider, any number of positions. Remember, when you're moving here, guys, you can play both sleeves. You can play one sleeve and one hip. When I want to break Seth's grip, all I'm going to do is hold steady and kick in the opposite direction. I don't need to yank super hard my arm, usually unless Seth is just incredibly strong, which every now and then will happen. But it's more of a hold with my left hand, stomp with my left leg. Now, I get myself into my De La Riva. I can try to lift. I'm trying to move him. He's moving backwards. I say, okay. I can move my hips. Again, notice how I'm relocating behind my defense. This time, from my open guard, I'm going to stay on Seth's bicep. As I try to lift, like he won't have any of it, I move him out, keeping his hand pulled forward so his weight is forward and his weight is off of his right leg. I'm shooting Seth's right knee towards the floor. And from this position, I have either pull him triangle, if we rotate. So again, here we are. I'm on the open phase. I'm playing my De La Riva, only I'm playing it with a foot on the bicep this time. Try to lift, not having any of it. I'm like, okay. Notice, I'm rotating my body away from Seth's leg as I keep a strong pull. Can you sit your hips down, Seth? Easy or hard?
Hard.
How about now? With his elbow real close in so you guys can see, it's very, very difficult for me to move him. When I've got this space all pulled out and I have his weight onto his left leg, and the way that we're accomplishing that if we rotate is with an extension from here, I can shoot Seth's right leg out very, very easily so he falls into a hole on his knee. Immediately I snap up into a triangle, we can finish, or alternatively, if Seth sees it coming, we can go right into the omoplata. So sometimes as I shoot the triangle, he'll duck his head low enough that I have to go to omoplata. Alternatively, again, I'm trying to move him, trying to sit up, trying to lift him. He's not having any of it. I rotate away. Spider hook drops out, goes all the way to his ankle. Sometimes I can just thread directly into omoplata, and if you were real cool, since Seth's got his foot up, I'm going to create a lot of pressure. So you can go into all sorts of different omoplata finishes, controls, things like that. But the basic idea here is simply, if you want me to get you're going to use your guard, and we're staying behind our wall, we're utilizing our structure, and we're damaging his. So Seth is, when he's on both feet, very, very stable. I'm like, all right, well, that sucks. I hate it when Seth is stable. He might beat me up. I move him over here, I move him over there, I move him over here, move him over there, move him over here, snatch this leg out. When he moves back, he falls. When he falls, that's the moment of vulnerability that I'm going to seize on and immediately launch my attack. All right. Guys, next position that we're going to show is going to be based off of the exact same idea of Michele's sweep. And of course, Michele does many other sweeps very well, but that's just one that stands out in my mind, that I've been really impressed with that she uses. I want to show, I guess, the same idea about how to fall. Initially, we were making someone fall from standing to a knee. I'm all the way up here, and whoa, I drop one level. You can do that when I'm standing here, and I all of a sudden drop. You can do that. Again, notice how I'm in a lower level pass, like kind of a, one knee up, one knee down. Whoa, and I fall. And we can also do that same thing, again, where you're getting me stable, you're trusting me. Now, you would have to kick me really, really hard to get me off my right knee right now. Why? Because my mass is over it. But the second you make me lean over here, you can, whoa, kick me out and drag me into the hole. Because if you kick me out, that's all right, I'm not going to fall. Unless Seth grabs my arm, pulls me out of the way, and I face plant. So, utilizing the same idea, we can hit attacks from all sorts of different positions. So this is really, we're illustrating a concept here with the technique. This is hardly the only place you could use it. So, let's say, for instance, I'm in my open guard and I'm bothering Seth and I'm trying to shoot my triangles, omoplatas, but notice how Seth's knees are close to his elbows, man. There's not much there for me. I'm having a hard time. He's playing conservatively. But all right, I'm gonna move, kick, adjust my position. As I spin out, I can shoot his knee all the way to the floor. Again, with that same ankle-to-ankle hook, if we rotate. Foot comes up, and I go, yeah, no worries, wabong. And I can go directly into my omoplata. And again, we can go into your more traditional gi-oriented omoplata, threading our leg through. Or if you want to be not so pleasant about it, you can shoot and wham, nail him with the thigh, whatever really floats your boat, and what depends on the situation. But the basic idea is I'm creating vulnerability in Seth by disrupting his base and disrupting his structure. So here he is, I'm like, man, I can pull and do all this shit and try to, and here's where I'm gonna use the same hook. Why is it not working? Well, all of his weight is over on this side. All right, now, woo, omoplata comes right in. The same idea, let's say if you're down on both knees, I'm just like, man, you're one of these guys. I'm like, okay, we've all seen this sweep, like, oh yeah, kick and scissor sweep. Let's rotate for a second, actually. This is another good example of this, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that scissor sweep. All right, sweep, where I kick his knee out and knock him over. Don't let me do it. Like, this move sucks, it only works on white belts. Yeah, because white belts are the only people that stand out of position without you moving the person. But if I pull Seth in, I move him this way, move him that way, now I kick and I drop him, the same move all of a sudden works. So, when Seth is passing, he's got his foot up, I shoot it all the way down, boom, but I couldn't quite get him. He's back into position, I'm moving, I get my feet on the inside, so I go to the biceps, I'm like, shoot, omoplata, we can attack. So, what I want you guys to start to think about is utilizing all of these techniques in the framework that you see, or rather in the positions that you see them, but also keeping your mind open enough to see where the framework exists elsewhere in your guard positions so that you can have success there as well. All right, guys, the next variation of the position, we're starting to continue to transition our defenses and our layers. So again, remember, in this particular case, we've been playing from, this long distance to pretty long distance. Now we're going from long distance to pretty long distance to medium distance of reverse De La Riva. So when Seth's in the open guard here, and so I'm in spider, and I'm doing whatever it is that seems to come to mind, and I'm trying to break grips and attack, and I'm having a difficult time. But Seth, if you'll notice, guys, as we've discussed before, a lot of times people play De La Riva, if we rotate, guys are going to hold the ankle. At least in Gi Jiu-Jitsu, particularly they'll hold the pants even better sometimes, because step across, very difficult. Not wrong, it's a great position if I want to keep him there. Notice I'm gripping, and I'm holding my hand, I'm putting my knuckles on the outside of my thigh so that he can't take his leg across. Take a leg across, please. I have to drag my hand through my leg, it ain't happening. But if I hold the ankle, that doesn't have the same effect, because what Seth can do, if you'll notice, is exactly, he pointed his toes. So if I move my feet here, try to take your leg straight back. Well, that doesn't do anything. But where's the hole in my hand? It's lateral. So see how the hole in my hand goes this way? He points his toe and he cuts across. Well, now he's gone from the left side of my guard all the way to the right side of my guard. So here we are, and I'm like, all right, I'm trying to do my thing, and I'm holding the sleeves, or I'm holding his ankle as I start to make my transitions, and Seth cuts across my guard. Well, he just came down a layer of my defense. So if we rotate, let's do that again. Remember, he's an instep and foot on my left side, instep and sole on my left side here, and he's going to cut across. Boom, and I'm like, oh shit, he's getting a little closer. As this occurs, I immediately brought my right arm underneath of my right knee, and I'm trying to corral Seth's knee onto my own stomach towards my left side. It doesn't need to be all the way there, but I don't want this, as we discussed, where he starts to slide through, and that sucks. So, elbow under knee, foot, sole of the foot is in between me and Seth. Can you lean on me, please? All right, it's cool. Not too bad. Could play here. Sometimes the reverse De La Riva position, if we give me a little more space, plays here. Whatever feels right to you at the time. It depends really on the situation. It depends how you want to play it. So if we come back more. So Seth's cutting across, and we go one, boom. I'm transitioning my defense. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to expand, lifting my hips so I can pull him towards me. Again, if I push my defense, Seth is going to cut his knee through, and I opened. It's not what I want. I keep my knees close to me, and I start to expand. Now I drop when I want to bring him back in. So I expand. Now, when I decide to move, I'm going to spin all the way under Seth's leg, in between. My left hand, or rather, the other left hand, the right hand, is going to go in between my leg and Seth's, and it's going to allow me to spin my entire body through the hole in his legs. It's very, very important. A lot of people, if we come back, whip this leg around. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to do it, you have to be very, very careful. It's got to come out real wide and come in close. I know Murillo Santana does it like that, does it super well. A couple of other guys do. I find myself capitalizing on that a lot of times, not on them, but on most people that spin this leg super wide. What I'd really recommend doing instead is when you lift up, is keeping it in close. So drop all your weight on me, Seth. So you got this structure holding him back the whole time. I never went here, pull my foot back. I'm like, ugh. This can happen sometimes. Not the end of the world. Well, actually, it probably will be against a good opponent. But what I really prefer to do is, again, I walk on him, I rotate, and I'm getting Seth's foot off the ground. Controlling in front and behind on both of his legs. My left foot came all the way into the crease of Seth's hip. Right now, my left hand, if we rotate. So again, not down here, no good. All the way up in the crease of the hip. Free hand is gripping the front of the thigh. Now, next thing, I'm rotating my shin and I'm letting go. Common error is people hold on, don't. Come up to the pants or the belt. I like the belt, but again, the pants are more reliable unless they're not wearing underwear, in which case I wouldn't grab the pants. But shoot their foot all the way out and take his foot off the mat. If we come back one more time, motion goes like this. Hand comes through, and I'm spinning in as reasonably tight of a ball as I can. And again, tight does not mean tense. Tight means tight. It means close. So if we cut out the first part, I'll give myself a little room. I roll into a ball, and I rotate underneath the Seth. Can you pull away from me, please? I'd drag you. If you would drag me across the floor, if he were going to try to get away. Without moving, I rotate my right foot behind my opponent, remove my right hand behind, come for the belt, shoot his foot out. Now immediately I latch on, I pull him back towards me. Big mistake is going, oh, okay, let me get the back, curl up. I'm like, I might lose him now. We're going to scramble. I pull him back towards me, shoot my free hook all the way across his body, fall to that side, open his lapel, climb and look to get onto the back. So we're here, or rather starting to get in, my fault. So I'm in the open phase, I'm having a hard time. I switch, Seth kicks across. I'm like, okay, I transition my defense. If you want, you can switch your sleeve. Well, it doesn't really matter too much. It depends on the situation as to what grips you like. If we come back and rotate a little bit to your that side. Exactly. See how he's really on me right now? I don't like that. Gotta give myself some room. Rotate, get my grips, circle. Make sure his butt hits the ground. Latch, pull tight to me. Foot comes across. Drop to that side as you open lapel. Step on their hip. Bring them low. And if you'll notice in the back attack series, we made a point about always buttressing the back shoulder. My hip is underneath my opponent's shoulder. Alternatively, you sit up a little bit and do it here too. But I don't want to be loose. So my hip can be in that spot or my shoulder, but I want to make sure that I'm backstopping the choke so that when I put pressure in there, there's not a lot of wiggle room. All right, guys. Now, I want to continue along the line from the reverse De La Riva as we transition down our layers of defense, again, maintaining our structure, and we're looking to get, again, into these advantageous positions. What I'm always looking to do, just like we were in the last clip, I'm blocking you, I'm stopping you from coming in and squashing me and ruining my day, and I'm trying to get underneath of you, because once I get underneath of you, I'm going to be able to cause you a significant amount of problems. You see most people that don't have an effective guard, they don't get under very much. People that have an effective guard are able to get underneath of their opponent. It's just that simple. And that's why we kind of went off in that direction on the last clip. This one is going to be a little bit simpler, but at the same time, very important. So Seth is at longest possible range right now, slightly closer. He cuts across my guard, slightly closer. Notice how I transition my feet. If we come back again, I could even be in a lasso, which is still a long range. I'm like, I don't like the lasso anymore. Let me go to De La Riva. He cuts across, and I go 1, 2. As he comes square to me, I'm making sure that I'm setting up my defense in such a way that blocks him. Now, the only difference is, where is the one spot? Can you bring your head towards mine, Seth? He can't get close to me there. Not the end of the world. I mean, I can keep him off me and stuff. But I'm going to switch my grip. Now do it. See how I've made a shield with my left arm? Drop heavy on me towards your head. I'm chilling. If we come back, drop heavy on me now. I'm like, oh, you can get in there. Again, can I manage that? Can I mitigate it? For sure, But what I want to do right now is stop that from occurring as best I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my cross grip because he's moved all the way to the right side of my guard. Now from here, I'm going to circle my hand to the inside. Grab my head, please. Grab my lapel. When he grabs my lapel, he starts to pull me in. He can start to do other things. There, again, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. He snaps it off. If you grab it tight, I may even get off me. Circle that hand outside. It depends on the situation. But the idea is I don't want him grabbing me at all. Seth does want to grab me. Fortunately, I know that. So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to start to, again, continue to expand my structure. And again, I'm not kicking him off of me. I'm expanding. He rotates his hand inside. What I'm going to do is rotate my whole body as this occurs. This is kind of a ships in the night passing each other kind of moment here. If we rotate, and my hand is on the inside. If we're here, come get me. If your hand's on the inside already, come get me. I'm like, shit. Well, he's not going to move. When I'm blocking Seth with the outside of my wrist, and he shoots inside, I'm making him overcommit. Very important. And my knee transitions from here, to the inside of Seth's body. I'm blocking. I want it right here, so that when I push him across, I'm going to be able to dump him. I am not leg extending and unwilling Seth Smith. Very, very difficult. If I got a lever, I may be able to do that. But again, I'm not trying to lift his whole body. Like when you see people that don't butterfly sweep well, they try to put it like right under your nuts and they try to lift you up. And they're like, God damn, everybody feels so strong or heavy. Yes, people feel extremely heavy when you try to leg extend their entire mass with one leg. If you use a lever and you use torque and rotation and all that, it's a significantly more manageable experience. So when Seth's cutting through my guard and I block and all that good stuff, and I'm extending away and he decides to come grab my head. I'm blocking him, he goes to the inside. I shoot. Now from here I'm pulling him onto me, I'm dumping him over, and I'm coming to the top. We can get into all sorts of guard pass scenarios and this and that. It kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're looking to do, but the basic idea is I cut across through Seth's guard, he's blocking me, so I'm like, all right, I'm up here. He gets my knee to cut here, but his knee comes to the outside and he's lifting with this. He's lifting right here as my free arm shoots across. This is a horrible position for me. I'm going to be dumped head over heels. Super, super, super important. If you try to lift me now, I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just you're going to have to be really freaking strong, and doing it from your back is borderline impossible if we're even remotely close to the same size. You twist me up, now what do I look like I want to do? I look like I want to do a shoulder roll. All you have to do is encourage me, and with a foot right here, you were able to make that happen. So, one last time. My knee is in the center of Seth's chest. Drive forward, please. I'm like, all right. Come get my lapel or my head. Here we are. Very small dump with a little kick. I make it all the way back over. I can start to get through Seth's guard. He's obviously going to protect himself. But if you want to see this sweep done really, really well, I like it, but I would recommend taking a look at Bruno Frazado and Lucas Lepri. They're both fantastic users of this sweep. All right, guys, we're going to start to build now. Before we were working on different lower body walls and using your head and things like that we can do for more traditional guard positions. And now what we're going to do is start to build some walls with your upper body as well, assuming that your opponent has bypassed your first line of defense, which is your legs. This is pretty important as far as I'm concerned, and really, really makes a big difference to guard retention and your ability to play jiu-jitsu in the way that at least that we believe that it should be played, from a open and offensive perspective that doesn't require tournament rules to protect you under certain circumstances. So again, here I'm in my seated guard, and let's say for instance someone jumps by it and I go, oh crap, that sucks. All right, that can happen, and Seth ends up over here. Or let's say for instance I'm in my shell position and Seth bypasses my legs, because again, jumping through my entire guard is difficult. But he may absolutely bypass my legs, and now here I am left with only my arms to defend. And what usually happens is we end up in side control. So we are. Let's play with this side. And all right, so Seth passes, and I'm like, oh no, and I'm framing, and people do this shit, and now they're shrimping, and I'm like, oh no, Seth passed my guard. Yeah, that sucks, and that could happen. But the reality is that there was a line of defense that was missed, and I think it's important that we address that. What we're going to look to do here is start to catch our opponent before he puts us to our back. Because when your elbows are in and you're in good side control defense position, you do have a degree of safety. The problem is it's hard to move, and right now, let's say I want to make my legs as effective as I can. I stay on my back. When I want to make my hands more effective, I sit up and I start to do all that kind of good stuff. This is a position I use all the time, and again, if you want to see this done brilliantly, look no further than Marcelo Garcia. What we're going to be looking to accomplish here is when Seth redirects my first line of defense, I'm immediately replying with my secondary. And now, so let's start with, let's say for instance, if you're jump over here, the seated guard. So here we are. I scooted to the side, and I was attempting to funnel Seth to my left, his right. But he wasn't having any of it. I made a mistake here, and he bypassed my knee. If I go, oh no, and I turn away, he's immediately climbing onto my back. Can I defend that? Yeah, maybe. But again, let's say that's different. That's no different than I'm shooting at you with my bow and arrow. All right, it's not working, and I say, fuck it, and I drop everything I've got and I run out to bite you. Or I just wait, and I've got my sword, And I'm like, nah. I wait until Seth gets close enough that I can't use the sword, and then I try to bite him. Which is great, because I haven't brushed my teeth in like 4 weeks, so he's probably going to get an infection. Even if he kills me, he's going to die later, tragically. But what we're going to do instead is recognize that I don't need to use my secondary or like my tertiary line of defense and things like that, falling on my back and using my hips and Granby rolling. I don't need to do that yet. As soon as Seth beats my knee, I reply with my collar tied. Now, it's important. The same hand that was holding me up in the seated guard when I was on my side is the same hand that's holding me up here. Because if you notice how close my hips are to Seth, if you push me now, I'm like, I fall over. Okay, so you push me now, I don't fall over because my butt's far enough back. Does that make sense? But if my hips are in and I don't want to get pushed over, you push me now, what's stopping me from being pushed over? My hand. The closer it is to me, the less effective of a block. The further it out it is, the more effective. So what's going to happen is Seth bypasses my guard. I immediately, my hips are in, my elbow is in close. I'm absolutely not trying to dig it in on him. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, and it has nothing to do with not causing them discomfort. I would love to cause them as much discomfort as possible. They're trying to fight me, they deserve it. But what I'm trying to do is make it as difficult as possible for him to shake my hand off. Most people, when they collar tie, grab the hell out of you, and it's completely unnecessary and it's counterproductive. So we're here. Seth is probably, as he bypassed my knee, looking to latch. He's probably going to lock his hands. Here's why. If you don't lock your hands, I'm like, oh, okay. I can just scoot back and replace a line of my defense. Notice how he initially bypassed my knee. Boom. If he doesn't lock his hands and he just keeps trying to run on my back, I'm like, okay. I square back up. I have a wall between me and him, and I can simply replace my knee on the inside of it. So, very, very, very commonly, Seth is going to lock his hands and try to pull my hips in. As he drives forward, I need to be either on my elbow, or better yet, on my hand, to be able to sustain that pressure. So, he pushes, and I'm like, oh no. My elbow stays in. It's very, very, very important. I'm relaxed. My head is up. I'm actually chilling here. This is not the end of the world. Drive in as hard as you can. Now, watch this. That sucked. Okay, here's how this works. So, see this? So my shoulders are behind my hands. If you were to push this hand, it would go. If I wanted to be in as strong alignment as I possibly could, I would make sure that I was in kind of a crucifix or a cross-style position here so that my shoulders and my chest are in line with my arm. This is super important. My chest is projected out the same way. If I'm concave, I'm going to catch all of the force and he's going to knock me to my back. That's not what I want. So I have to take into account the fact that Seth's head is on the inside of my arm. Watch, I'm concave out. I get pushed to my back. Drive me now. See where my foot is. It doesn't really matter. It can be inside. It can be outside. There's all sorts of stuff. We'll get to that kind of thing later. But right now, use your head to drive me to my back.
It's not happening.
Yeah. Significant difference. So I'm locking in and I'm making my first check with my collar tie. Now, very secondary point, if we come back for a second. With my collar tie, I'm using my humerus, my upper arm, to keep him from getting close. Drive in. All right, whatever, never going to happen. Like, seriously, unless my bone disintegrates, you could turn into Brock Lesnar. You may push me up the mat, but I'm not going nowhere. Watch this. Drive now. I don't have the tricep strength to push a grown adult man off of me like this, with like a hammer-style position. I don't need tricep strength. If I'm here pushing back, even if I am able to hold him back for a time, my arm is going to be shot after a while. It's going to get compressed. I'm going to keep my elbow in just a little bit higher. I'm fine. Now, one thing I do have to be aware of is that Seth can rotate off my collar tie if it's too in close. So if you lock your hands and my elbow's in super close, he can try to shrug it by. Not the end of the world, and when I say super close, I mean right in on his neck. Ideally, what I'm going to do is if I feel him starting to shrug by, I'm going to open my elbow just a little bit. So if we rotate so we can see a little bit, I'm opening my elbow to his shoulder. Turn the corner now. Turn the corner now. Hey, it can happen. And don't get me wrong, even if that happens, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry. We got secondary and third and all that good stuff, lines of defense. But I would prefer to not let this guy through in the first place. So here I am. He's got my hips pulled all the way in. Drive forward, please. I'm fine. We're going to be able to break his grip from here eventually. But if you notice, he's not scoring. Can you jump on my back, please?
No.
If you try, his hand's open. I'm going to be able to start to reply and get myself back out. So as soon as he bypasses, this is no different, guys, than it's, all right, Spider Guard, right on. This is sweet. I love Spider Guard. He pulls me off. I'm like, oh, God, no. That sucks. Should we come back? He pulls that by, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I bring him into closer ranges of guard. And now he shifts those by. Like, oh man. I sit up, immediately bringing, if we come back, my elbow high enough that I can block him. This is very, very, very important. I'm sitting up enough, and I can actually, if let's say for instance if we're in the shell position, use the momentum of Seth's guard pass in many cases to spin me from here, watch this, if we come back, to here. And it's important that by the time I land, I'm in proper structure. So here we are. Seth X passes my guard. I go, oh, thanks, buddy. And he used that to help me up. Whereas if I came back for a second, and as he's X passing, I'm trying to spaz and fight him. He's going to crush me. This is not what we're looking for. Watch this. As soon as he X passes me, I go, whoa, thanks. And I sit up, get into this position before he was ready to defend and before he was ready to stop me. And from here, we're going to be able to launch all sorts of counter offense later on. All right, guys. The next wall that we're going to be building with our upper body is going to be the inverted collar tie. And, you know, it's all it is. So here we are. Here's your regular collar tie position. Here's the inverted collar tie position. If you notice, there's not a whole lot of difference, really. My humerus is at the same-ish angle, and I'm using it as a block between me and another guy. But how would this come into play? Let's say, for instance, you know, and again, we're going to get into specific ways that we're going to counterattack and do all kinds of cool stuff with this later on. But the basic idea is simply, oh, man, what... You know, when are we going to use this position? Well, all right. So, Seth redirects my guard. I use the momentum to help sit up, and I get my collar tie into position. But before I was able to do anything, he ducks under it, and I'm like, ah. Here we go. Locked in tight, please. It doesn't seem like this is doing anything, does it? Drive in.
Can't.
Cool, right? So basically, drive in as hard as you can. I'm fine. This is absolutely no different. This is just a check between me and another guy. It's difficult to see. It's almost like I'm putting my hand on my hip. So it's like a kind of sassy defense here. So you're like, they trying to pass your guard and you're like, uh-uh. But basically...
Super.
So basically, Seth jumps by and I sit up. And then he ducks underneath or shrugs by, but more often duck underneath. I got caught a little bit out of position, but guess what? We got an answer for this later on too. But anyway, he ducks underneath, my hand switches. In the same scenario, I'm going to be able to prevent him. Go to my back, please. See I have that check in between us? I'm going to be able to maintain and expand into this position in a way that's going to maintain the distance that I need to stop him from getting on my back. He may be able to walk behind me, but walking behind me and getting on my back are two very different things. So, steps on bottom here. I don't know if we screwed up the kiln. As soon as I X pass his guard, he sits up. Notice how he's shelled out in this position, or rather his expanded. If I don't lock my hands, I'm just like, come here. He's going to immediately be able to square back up. So not too much of a concern. So again, you're going to use these positions either deep into a guard pass where you're going to need to kind of deal with someone that's holding on to you. Other times you use it just with someone that thinks that they're going to, you know, spazzy athlete by your guard. All you do is check them and you'll be fine. We're here, but then I go, okay, let me duck. As soon as I duck, Seth simply rolled his arm. If I kept trying to move around, his arm is in between me and him the whole time. I'm not going to be able to get there. He has it checked. This is no different than if you're posting on me, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to move to his back. I'm going to move to the front. I'm going to move to the back. No, I'm not. Unless I can get rid of that post, I'm going to have no success in closing the gap. So this is, guys, going to be another very, very effective and important block for you if you can put the time in to learn it. And it just takes a little bit of calm, and it takes faith. You have to practice, and you have to believe in these things, because if you lose faith partway through, you're like, I've got my block, you're like, I don't know about this, and you start to bail, you know, things don't tend to work out well like that. You have to trust the position and trust the structure, so make sure you're feeling the position out. And when you have your hand free, post so that this other guy can lean on you, try to drive, push, pull, all that, you know, nonsense. As long as you feel that you're feeling the line of structure going through your arm, through your shoulder, down into your hand and into the floor, you're going to be fine here, and you're going to be able to hold the other guy back and create your counter offense later on. All right, guys, our next defensive wall is going to be our closest range upper body tool, which is going to be your lat, or your back, actually, and your whizzer. Now, in this situation, Seth has bypassed my legs, he's bypassed my collar tie, he's bypassed my inverted collar tie, and he's gotten extra close. What I have to do now is make sure that he's so close to me that he actually can't get on my back. So, whether I'm seated or I'm in my shell position and Seth X passes me and I go, oh man, I try to get in position, but he got so close, if you notice, he shrugged, I couldn't get my collar tie in. Immediately what I do is I whizzer. So if we rotate, I'm draping my arm. A whizzer is not a, just go nutso, squeeze super hard, like, grips, because just bring me to my back. I'm like, well that sucks, and now I'm holding myself there. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm expanding into the position, I'm opening my chest, I'm posting my free hand on the ground. Drive me to my back, please, Seth. Now, the purpose of this whizzer and the purpose of this grip, and you can actually grip the belt to do the same thing in the gi. No gi, it doesn't work that way, obviously. If I just did this, he would duck under on me. But here we are. Whether my leg is out or in, it gives us different options. We'll get to that stuff later. But right now, can you duck under and take my back?
No, there's no space.
Can you arm triangle me?
No.
Why not?
I gotta get my head out first.
Exactly. If you shoot for your arm triangle, let's say you just reach up with your right arm. Any opening in the arms gives me my opportunity to move back into my standard defense. So here we are. He's gripping. There's all sorts of things that he's not going to be able to do. It seems like, oh yeah, you limp arm out. I'm just going to follow him. He's not going anywhere, and if I need to, I can recompose my guard. Can you jump on my back?
No.
Why is that?
Because I need to get my head to the other side of your arm.
Can you seatbelt me, please?
I can't connect my hands.
What if you lock your hands on the other side of my neck, like both of them? I'm like, oh no. Immediately it frees my hips and I can recompose my guard. So what I need you guys to feel, though, the trick to this position is, and again, this is the same thing if you just push my knee by, I'm like, ah, crap. I turned sideways. Super important. Again, my chest is out. My hips are in, my hand is on the mat. Drive forward, please. Later on, we're going to get into cool stuff where you chuck people and all that good stuff. You can throw them here and do all kinds of niftiness. But watch, if I'm here and I'm a little bit more chest towards him, he's going to drive me directly to my back. This is no bueno. If we come back, I'm here. Drive, please. Nope. Feeling all right. If he gives me any space, collar tie, if he ducks under, inverted collar tie, I can do all sorts of other stuff. We're going to get into counter offense a little bit later on. But the basic idea here is simply he gets close to me, and I do not panic. The worst thing I can do here is if Seth gets close to me, and I go, oh no, and I try to push him away, which is what a lot of jiu-jitsu guys do because they have such poor wrestling. You just duck under and go right to my back. And I'm like, oh, this is bad. Where again, this is not where I want to be, but as long as he ducks right underneath my defense, ah, crap, we're here, and I'm like, okay. It's actually a lot harder to do anything than you might think. And here's the other thing. I'm going to throw the shit out of you if we get up to the feet and you keep this grip too. So we'll get to that later on. But this is nowhere near as compromised a position as you might think at first. And as long as I don't let Seth drive me to my back, circle around all the way, like throw a hook in too. Any circling he does, I can match with my own. If you try to put me in half guard and bring me to my back, as long as I don't go to my back, I'm going to be fine. Resist the jiu-jitsu guy urge to go, yay, half guard. Because he's going to go, yay, crushing guard pass. So, trust your defense and trust your structure. And as long as you feel like this guy actually can't crush you, he can't. All right, guys. The last line of defense that we're going to be covering right now is going to be your hips, putting them in between you and, or rather, the other guy and your back. Generally speaking, obviously, your opponent's looking at can get control of your hips, but when he wants to do that, more times than not, it's assuming that your back is towards the mat so that he can pin your hips to the ground and all that good stuff. When I'm actually going towards the turtle or the inverted guard or the Granby position, it's a little bit different because my opponent latching onto my hips is actually going to be something kind of favorable for me because I'm going to be able to move him around. You know, obviously, you know, a master of any of the style of position that you could watch would be Eduardo Tellez, where, you know, you latch onto Eduardo Tellez's hips at your own peril. You're probably going to find yourself swept and then wondering what happened. And we're going to be doing a lot of that style of thing as well. It's something that's a big part of my game and something that I think we might be able to help you all out with. But right now, let's assume for a moment here that my opponent bypassed each layer of my defense, and he got through my legs, he got through my feet, he got through my knees, he got through my elbow, my hand, and I didn't feel that I wanted to reply with the whizzer. I didn't want to sit all the way up. So here we are. Seth's passing guard, and I go, oh man, he moves my legs. Well, here he slides. I try to put my hand in between, and I'm having a difficult time. If you'll notice, he's got a hold of my hips. This is absolutely not what I want from my back towards the mat perspective. If his head is on the inside of my body, this is bad news. If his head is on the outside of my body, it's nowhere near as a big deal. Actually, later on, we're going to get into all kinds of cool stuff like that, where you're going to turn the other guy using his arm. Where that's going to be later on in the series. But for right now, what I want you to think about doing is, rather than using your hips as a weapon, is using your hips as a shield first. So I'm just pretty much going to put my ass in between me and you, and then you're going to have to deal with it. So Seth moves my defense, and I get my hips in between me and him. Can you drive forward? Not effectively. This is going to allow me to get my hands back in, my feet back in, and start to replace my guard. So the last wall that we're using is actually, I guess you could say it's really more your spine, and on the end of your spine is your ass. So Seth moves my defense. I go, uh-oh. I check with my hands, ideally, because again, if you notice, my hands actually descend below my hip, so they are going to meet there first. I get my butt in between me and him, and Seth latching on and trying to be in like double leg style position is way less of a big deal. All I'm going to do is check, withdraw my feet, replace them back in front, and return to an ordinary style of guard. This isn't so much of a move as it is an idea for a strategy. All you need to do is get your hips free and put them in between you and other guy. What I don't want to have happen is this, is have Seth get on top of my hips. This is not good. Watch, right now do you feel like you can control me?
Yes.
For sure, this sucks. The more I start to walk away, the second I have my hips, he should be below my hips. Do you have control now?
No.
And actually, this is where all kinds of bad things can happen for Seth if he's not careful. So not only are we going to be able to be putting in an effective wall, utilizing our spine and one of the two heavier parts of your body, your hips, you're actually bringing your traditional guard weapons, your legs, to bear, which are going to grant you your omoplata, your triangle, your arm lock, all that good stuff. So when my guard is redirected, whether it's here or here, let's say it was from the knees, and you just stuff my knee by, I go up, and I bring my hips in between me and you. As long as I replace one wall with the other, it's no different. My hand's on Seth, he shrugs it off. He shrugs that off. He shrugs that off. I'm like, okay. He's actually nowhere near close to getting me right now. If he were above my hips, very different story. What would I reply with? I'd reply with my whizzer, and I can start to play with different things here, making sure I keep him out of my hips. But if he's below my hips, what are you really going to do? As long as I'm willing to return to my guard, it's not really a concern. So from a fighting perspective, sometimes a little bit different because you may not want to go back to the bottom. From a jiu-jitsu perspective, man, it's great. Go back to your guard. What are they going to do about it? As long as you're able to continually put these layers of defense in between you and your opponent, they're never really going to be able to ascend to the level up here where they're going to have a strong, degree of success, a likelihood of success by, getting onto your back, latching on for side control, things like that require a different elevation on your body for them to really be able to be successful with. All right, guys. Our next thing that we're going to be doing is just a quick drill to, kind of hammer home some of the different details and different defense positions that we've been using over the last little portion of the DVD. All that's going to happen is Seth is going to continue to pass my guard, and he's going to redirect my defense. And now I have to understand, again, when Seth is training, he's also training for himself. He's not practicing before technique. He's practicing the right way. He's X-passing. He's moving a leg drag, a knee cut through my guard, whatever happens to be there. And I'm going to reply each time with a different defensive shield, and I can go from one to the next if it's appropriate. And if it's one of the ones, let's say, for instance, where I put my hips in between me and Seth, then it'll just be a reset entirely that kind of brings him back to a guard pass. The more experienced you are, the more skillful you become with these types of positions, both offensively and defensively, from the passing side and the defensive side of this whole deal, the longer you're going to be able to keep the sequence going. Ideally, you can turn it into the sort of thing that just turns into a flow back and forth and here to there to there to there, and it really becomes a very effective drill. So So start, Seth's passing, I sit all the way up, he ducks under, move back. Set all the way in, I'm like, okay, I start to check in. Collar ties, back, redirects, collar tie again. Whizzer, if he gets through the collar tie, turn it to inverted collar tie, he's trying to drive forward. I'm like, okay, I can actually come back to the initial, but I'm starting to feel the structure of my position. Come back, he starts to block, move my hips back in, he can move to either side. I can use the inverted collar tie on the inside as well. Start to move away if you keep your hands locked. This later on, guys, you're going to start to turn this into your attacking positions as well. Ducks again, check, up, ducks back underneath. I'm like, here comes my wizard position. Can you drop me to my back? If you do, I'm going to use that same rock from the beginning to try to get me back up, get my hips behind me, make sure my chest is forward, my head is out, or rather my head is up, my chest is forward and out, posting on the ground. If I'm here, drive forward. Test your positions to make sure that you're feeling like you can hold the person back. Drive forward now. I'm fine. Back away, try to go to my back. Oh my God, here comes the collar tie. Comes back in, throws my knees by. I'm like, got my butt in between me and him. Drive forward. A little higher than I wanted. I can drop back to my whizzer. Reply in any way that we want. And eventually what you're going to do is use sequences like this, guys, to start to work your offensive counter movements, your straight up regular offensive movements, and you can really make this an effective part of your game. All right, guys, now we're going to be moving into some of the specific ways, specific counter sequences that you can use off of the defensive positions that we've covered so far with our secondary guard. What we're going to start with right now is going to be going back to the regular collar tie position once Seth has bypassed my initial line of defense, my legs. Again, it's important to notice that, again, that I've sat up, I've started to block him, I've created a structure that's going to hold him back, and with that, I'm going to be able to protect myself. So, whether Seth was in my seated guard or he was in my shell position, he's going to get himself around my guard. As he does, it's important to notice. Watch, spin me around real quick. Yeah, just like X past me, but spin me. Kind of hard. I don't really move very much. Watch this. Spin me now. I can spin because I'm on my butt. I want to be kind of on the back of my hips as he starts to spin me, because what this is going to do is it's actually going to whip me into position. So again, when I'm staying on my back, as Seth spins me, it's like, now I've got to generate all the get up myself. Hey, sometimes you're a little slow, we get here, this stuff happens, but it's not what we're looking for. What's going to happen, what we really want is as he starts to go, I sit up so that he spins me into this position. Now from here, what I need to do is start to recognize that Seth is a lot powerful closer to his body than he is further away. So see how he's locking his hands here and pulling me in tight? What he wants to do is shrug his shoulders, get my arm out of here, and then he can start to give me a hard time. Again, there's, as we saw before, there's things we can do, and we're going to carry on with that later on. But right now, what I want to think about doing is saying, hey, how can I get this guy to let go of me? So what I'm going to do is I have 1 point set against the inside of Seth's neck, right here with my right elbow. Now, opposite that, I want to take my hips as far as I possibly can, because right now, do you feel like you could hold on all day, Seth?
Yeah.
And if the idea that I'm going to push this guy off of me with my right arm is just really, naive at best. So if we rotate a little bit, what I want you guys to think about doing is taking your butt out towards where your hand is. Now, here's the thing. Don't chuck yourself, because the worst thing I can do is try to jump and then end up back on my back. I'm going to take my feet and I'm going to start to walk so that I stay in contact, so that if you start to move me, I can adjust my hip positioning and all that good stuff to feel the pressure that he's putting in. I'm going to walk, and I'm taking my feet away. Do you start to feel strain on your grip?
Yeah.
Now watch, as I lift my hips, it's going to start to cause Seth's grip to break. From here, he has a choice. I've put him to a choice. Again, I don't control Seth. Only Seth controls Seth. When I get to the mount, I get to the back, we do other stuff like that, and I can start to be a little more in charge. But right now, all I'm doing is saying, look, man, I'm getting out. What do you want to do about it? You want to follow me? Because it sucks to be Seth right here, and he's done well. He's passed my initial guard, particularly if he doesn't have like a serious understanding of what's going on, which in my experience, most people I come across don't. He'll be like, I've passed the guard. He hasn't passed the guard. He's gotten through my first layer of defense, which is cool and everything, but he's not quite as far along as you might think. But he's far enough along that a lot of people don't want to give it up. That's why, let's say I'm mounted on you and you start to escape. I'm not just going to let you out of the mount, or at least not usually, because I worked hard to get there. I don't want you to get it back. So as I walk away and I start to create pressure, Seth is going to do one of a few things. If he backs off, so if we come back, here we are. Again, my hips are in close because Seth's pulling him in. Hey, if this happens, don't fight it. If he wants to go apeshit here and hold on and drive like a crazy person and stuff like that, just keep your feet on the ground and walk and move with him and all that good stuff. He may be inhumanly strong. Some people have like orangutan strength. Just let him chill out and hold you for a second. What's he going to do, really? I mean, he can't climb. The second he tries to progress, I'm going to get out anyway. So he has to continue holding me. So as he does that, again, don't feel like I have to chuck my hips. All I'm going to do is little by little put pressure on his grip. So I walk, 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 walk. Okay, now if you back away, I'm like, oh, okay, I can recover. I could stand up if I so chose. But what will happen a lot of times is once the grip breaks, Seth goes, damn it, and he starts trying to chase me to reacquire his grip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to circle and palm his head away from me. So if we come back to the middle again, we go scoot, he keeps coming, I'm going to turn him. Immediately it's giving me his flank and I'm starting to get behind. Now, once behind, if we rotate for a second, as soon as my hips are up, my weight is on him. Can you sit up, please, sir?
No.
Right. So I'm not here. I'm not palming his head from my feet, from my hips on the ground. The second that I do decide to use my collar tie and turn him, I'm using my forearm on the back of his neck, and I'm rotating into a seatbelt position. Now from here, I could of course go to crucifix. I could do whatever else. Not really as much. Some guys are fantastic with that position. I would be, if we rotate a little more, I'd be more likely to drop and take us back. It really depends on what it is that you're up to at the time. If you had a great clock choke, you go to that. You can do whatever the situation requires and whatever lines up with the skill set that you've developed. But the idea is that you're getting yourself free of this person's grip and you're moving to a superior angle and a superior position where you can put your mass on this guy. So one last time. We are. Seth beats my guard. I'm already seated upright. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll walk away. Turn, rotate, lock my seatbelt, and I can immediately start to attack. So remember, don't be in a rush. Time is on your side once you set your structure in. Let them kind of burn their arms out, and when their grip breaks, put them to that choice between back off and give you your space or come back in to try to continue to follow the pass. Put them by you, lock up that seatbelt. All right, guys, the next sequence that we're going to utilize from this position involves one of the ideas that we've come up with before, which is, again, we built our wall, and now I'm looking to make this guy fall forward into a hole and into a trap that I can use to start to sweep him. What's going to end up happening here is I'm blocking Seth, and again, I have to create a real wall. If I have a poor wall that's not going to get the job done, well, it doesn't really do anything. But if I have a really, really intelligently constructed wall, then I know that one, it's sound and I can hide behind it. And two, if you do beat it at all, you're going to have to do it in a set number of ways. Like if you think about it, for those of you, sci-fi or rather fantasy nerds out there, remember, Lord of the Rings, the second movie, Helm's Deep, right? There were two places to attack the wall. The door, which they went to, and then the little completely strangely unguarded, water gate that they ended up blowing a hole in that you think they would have put one of their ninja elves behind just to be sure, because that's the other obvious hole in the wall, even if you think people can't go through it. But those were the two things that people attacked, if you think about it. Otherwise, the wall was more or less impenetrable. If I set a proper wall for Seth, he's got to apply a ton of pressure to the only spots he thinks it will break, or try to circumvent it in one of the few ways that he can. So again, make sure as you're going through this, you're always feeling for the structure of your position. So now, what we're going to do is I've caught Seth here, and I've got my elbow in position. And right now, Seth, you're not driving in at all, are you?
No.
So that's fine. I need to feel drive in this position. There's nothing that he's doing wrong. There's nothing to say that Seth has to drive into me. Again, I don't control this guy. Seth controls Seth. So hey, if he wants to hold there, I'm like, okay, let me walk, I'll get myself out of here. But if I feel, I'm like, man, this guy's driving in like crazy, this sucks. Where do you feel blocked? What check do you feel?
The structure of your humerus is in my shoulder, so I can't come any closer than that.
Can you lean on my elbow for a second? All right. Yay. He fell. Now, if I don't move, he falls and lands on me and then continues beating me up. But if I feel Seth driving in or pulling me in, I'm going to let go. Catch him, and I'm going to use my rocking motion, because notice how I'm sitting up. It's very important, again, that my chest was out in the first place if we come back. the more loaded, if I was going to do a backflip, we come back for a second, which implies that I can do a backflip, which as far as y'all know I can. But anyway, I would start leaning forward so that I have more to rock backwards with. If I could do a backflip starting from this position, that'd be pretty impressive. So the idea is I want to make sure that, again, my structure is filled out here. But in addition to that, I'm leaning forward. I'm angling my mass forward so that I can sling it back like a hammer and chuck myself over head over heels. So if we come back, Seth comes around the way, I block him, he starts leaning in, I say, great. And I catch. This is one of those positions that everyone in jiu-jitsu doesn't use. That's because people in jiu-jitsu don't use it, not because it doesn't work. And yes, for all the blue belts out there, blue belts do this to you and they don't have a lot of experience, you will absolutely get their back. If someone really good at this position locks you in the, the head and arm, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. Can you get my back, please, Seth? Grant.
Not unless I can get my elbow out.
Yeah, and of course, it's like we all recognize Seth is not trying to kill me right now, and maybe even, he's being nice to make me look extra good on video. Okay, you're going to get my back now, right?
Like I said, not unless I get my arm out.
You can put that left arm over and pull me over backwards, right?
No.
How about now?
Maybe.
Okay, maybe. Well, okay, how about now?
No way.
All right, I'm chilling. So if you understand how to use any number of positions, that's the other thing. Everything works, and everything also doesn't work. Done at the right time, provided that something is fundamentally sound, it will work. If something is fundamentally unsound, like if I'm like, oh, I want to hold back someone like this, well, this is fundamentally crap. So this, I would say, does not work. Now, if I'm Brock Lesnar or Toquinho or something like that, and you're a normal-sized person, I may be able to hold you back. But that doesn't mean so it does work, in the strictest sense, but it's not fundamentally sound. What's allowing it to work is overwhelming physicality, something that I can't necessarily, assume that I'm going to have at all times. But if I'm able to stop you from getting up on top and stop you from moving because I'm sitting next to you and I'm wrapping your elbow around me to the point that you actually can't move, may I borrow it again for a second? So we'll get back to this position in a second. But, okay, so here I am. I'm holding onto your head now. Now can you get my back? Wow, Seth sneaks his elbow out and he does his super sweet Gracie self-defense move and gets my back. Yeah, it's like, oh man, everyone knows that the headlock doesn't work. I'm not even gonna hold your head. Come out and get my back. And that'll be pretty rad. You guys remember like Remco Pardue from way back in the day, like UFC, who actually sat here and elbowed the crap out of the Muay Thai fighter? Well, granted, Remco was like twice his size, but nonetheless, he actually did the position well, and the other dude wasn't going anywhere. If I don't let your elbow get out, I can hold the position. If I do let your elbow get out, I'm in a lot of trouble. So usually, we'll get back to again the execution of this move in a second. But you can take my back, right, Seth?
No.
The second he reaches his backhand up over me, I'm gonna get my butt to the other side and control. So if we come back again, I toss him initially. I go, oh crap. The second he reaches up, there's a gap in his defense on the other side. I say, thanks, bud. I go ass first, and then I bring my feet to the other side. There's other ways that you can get yourself out of there, but the basic idea is I want you to be able to launch someone into that position, feel calm and comfortable, not feeling like you're going to get your back taken. And again, if you feel like you're going to get your back taken and then you let go, it becomes self-fulfilling and they will climb onto your back. If you control the situation, don't let the elbow out, you're actually going to be all right. So let's start from the word go. Let's go to this side for a second. So Seth passes my guard one way or another. I go, I sit up. He's driving in. I let him fall as I rock backwards over his arm, sinking. He tries to reach up. I say, cool. Don't go legs first because my mass is actually still on this side. Go butt first. Bring your legs through. And you're actually going to find yourself in a pretty good position of control. You're likely to turn which way?
I'm likely to turn in to get my elbow out.
Fantastic. If you turn in, thanks, bud. And I can actually mount. And we can do all kinds of other stuff that kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're doing right now. But the long and short of it is that those positions don't exist in wrestling and judo because no one in wrestling and judo knows how to escape them. They exist because people actually control those positions well. So it's not a traditional jiu-jitsu position, but it's something that can actually become a part of your game if you do practice it. All right. So next usage of the backwards roll, guys, is going to come off of the collar tie as well. Only this time, again, as I said, I can't control Seth. I can only, encourage him to do certain things and then respond, appropriately to what he replies to me with. I'm going to, again, start with my collar tie. I'm going to let go. When I do back roll, it's important to make sure that I do get a good grip on Seth. I'm attaching to him, but I'm not latching on. I'm gluing my arm to him. I'm not flexing my ass off. It's very, very important. I want to become one kind of piece so that when I move, both of us move. So in the prior, so again, last move, Seth's leaning in, driving, all of a sudden, I catch. It's just a hip-driven motion, but I'm making sure that I grip inside of his armpit. Again, this is a hip-driven motion, so I'm scooting forward. Once I get on top of Seth's arm, can you let go with your hands for a second?
No.
So even if you let go with your arms,
Can't get my arm out.
we're going over. He can't get his arm out. I'm going to be able to flip back to the other side. But if in the midst of the initial position, particularly if Seth understands this movement, and he recognizes the severity of what's about to occur, he may go, whoa, and let me go, saying, all right, I didn't want to let you go, but given the choice between that and rolling to the bottom and being in really bad position, I will let you go and try to fight another day. So when we're here, Seth's driving in, and I let go, and I start to scoot backwards if we come back. As soon as I pull, he lets go. Immediately, I have to feel that this has occurred and recompose my defense. Posting, getting my hands out. Super, super, super important. So what we're doing is, again, checking as soon as I feel. So a great way to practice, guys, is actually with your eyes closed, because it's like your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. If you recall the Star Wars thing, and it is actually accurate, because I'm like, oh right, I'm gonna hit my motion. And I'm like, oh no, the Kimura or something like that, and then I just get mashed back down into the ground, as opposed to feeling and immediately finish the arm triangle, as opposed to feeling like, okay, well, my baby. I felt that I couldn't move him. The second that Seth turned into a brick and I heard that, or I felt the recoil from Seth's hands hitting the mat, and again, the more glued to him I am, the more I'm going to feel that recoil and recognize what's going on. I'm going to let go. So here's my motion. I have my collar tie in. I'm pushing into him. He's pushing into me. A lot of times I'm going to get him to push into me by pushing into him. As he drives in, I go, okay, great. And I chuck my hips back, but I immediately feel, oh man, he's posting. I get my hand back in between, and I'm trying to open my knee back in front, ideally. So if we come back, what I want to do, if we sit up for a second, and rotate a little bit. When I'm here, Seth, you can move around the side of my defense, right? Okay. If you're not allowed to get to the inside, he's not allowed to move outside of my knee. Move around my defense, please. You can move, right?
Not if I can't go
If you
around
circle, just watch what happens. Stay low, because remember, if you sit up, I'm going to go back to my regular guard. So if we're here and he's close, okay, circle to your left, please. Like, thanks, buddy. Nothing happens. If he can't get around this, I win. So as soon as I possibly can, I'm trying to get this thing back into defensive position so that I have multiple layers of defense. Because again, I do want to kick you out. I'd love to have not just one wall, but 10 walls. Because what happens if one wall breaks and I've only got one wall? Well, even if it was a good wall and it broke, I'm now at risk. However, if I've got 10 walls, one breaks, do I really care? I mean, yeah, I don't want that wall to break, but whatever. It's hardly an emergency. So the more layers of defense and the more walls I can put in between me and other guy, the safer I'm going to be. And the safer I am, the more easily I'm going to be able to think about what I'm going to do to this person rather than be worrying about my moment-to-moment survival. So Seth is jumping past my guard. I'm pushing in. He's driving back in. I'm immediately getting my knee back into position. And again, this is the sort of thing where if he were pulling back a little bit, I could start to stand up, I could snap him, any number of different things can start to occur here after the fact. But as long as you're able to keep yourself defensively sound and stop this guy from getting right back on you, you're going to be okay. So just make sure if you feel or hear this, immediately abandon your roll, scoot right back to your butt. And again, the way we're going to do this is when I roll, I'm not just rolling backwards, my hips are chucking forward. So my hips go forward, and I feel ka-chunk of his hands. Immediately, they jump backwards, and I open my knee out. That's what's going to give you the structure you need to resist the pressure your opponent can put on you if he knows how. All right, guys. The last attack we're going to use from the collar tie position is going to be a headlock throw, or kind of a modified Harai Goshi. And what I'm going to do here is take advantage of an off balance in my opponent's position. So let's say, for instance, I feel he's driving in, and I'm kind of blocking. He's trying to figure out what to do. He's trying to walk around behind me maybe, and feeling like, aha, that's one of the best times to get him. Because if you'll notice, the left corner, rather the right corner of Seth's body has come close to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition my grip, again, from the collar tie block to an over-style grip that can now project forward. Can you pull your head out, please?
No, stuck.
Right, I'm gluing my knee to my chest, and I'm driving forward with my armpit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my base up underneath Seth. This is a technical stand-up. I'm going to chuck him, and now immediately, do I have control of your elbow if you rotate? Do I have control of his elbow? That's a no, so can you get up? I would immediately have to start to try to drive him back to the ground, my knee through pass, anything like that. But most times when you hit this, what's going to end up happening is you're going to actually trap that arm. So if we come back for a time, he's driving in. I'm like, okay, great. Now once here, I'm going to expand into the armpit. Notice I'm not here facing the head with my butt sticking back, and I'm not trying to lean on him. These are all really bad ideas that end up with a rough type situation. Where's my weight? Do I feel heavy?
No.
Okay. Do me a favor, lift me, go to the other side.
Yeah, it's very hard.
You got like developmental problems? You can't lift me? Not strong enough?
I'll try.
All right. All right, how about now? Ah! Okay. So, in the intervening 10 seconds or whatever, Seth has obviously done a cycle or two. Okay, do me a favor now. Throw me now. All right, Arnold can't throw me either. And if that happened, I could just choke or whatever the heck it is. And these moves, again, don't work, do they? But what are you going to do about it? Don't have to let go. I'm not suggesting that you necessarily should reach back and hit somebody with the Saturday Night Special, but you can do whatever it is that you need to do to control. So, as I turn and I open my hips, Seth's arm becomes increasingly trapped as my hip starts to enter his armpit. So again, if I'm here, I'm gripping super tight and I'm doing all the moves that people tell me. I grab the thigh and I yank up on his head and I squeeze tight and I'm like, yeah, take that. Can you move me now? Oh no, that escape actually works. Okay, now watch this. I'm not even going to try. Okay, roll me to the side.
Yeah.
I thought he knew how to do that escape 4 seconds ago and apparently forgot. Or the difference between being able to make that work and being able to not make it work is someone that's properly applying this position. So as you throw, I hope this shows the value of trapping your opponent's arm and starting to control the position as we land. Because if I chuck you and land without control of that elbow, you can most certainly get up behind me. We're going to create a scramble. Hey, I'm better off than I probably was when you were on top squashing me and hugging my hips in super tight. But if I'm able to take advantage of the fact that we come back for a second, look at this giant space here. My hips should be able to get in there very, very, very easily. All I need to do is build my base. So again, drive all the way over. My hips enter that space. You can, again, I'm not suggesting that you necessarily should hold without the head and everything like that, but whatever you do, don't latch on and do dumb stuff like this. This is terrible. All I've done is made it easy for Seth to lift me. I can put my head here. I can make this comfortable or not, but is this uncomfortable?
No.
Not terribly, but can you move me?
No.
No. I can make it way more uncomfortable. Way more important than kill you is protect me. If I protect me long enough, I'll find a way to get you. But if I'm going all like Mad Dog, murder, death, kill mode, and then get rolled over, oh yeah, and don't forget where you're getting rolled over too. This is going to go badly. So, one last time. Here's my motion with no one here. I check. I'm scooting away. This guy's giving me a hard time. Maybe he's going towards my back. I say, great. I let him fall just a little bit by transitioning from my collar tie to my overgrip as I build my base underneath me, turning him over. Sometimes you'll actually get to the knees and kind of borderline hip toss him or Higoshi him. Other times, you're just going to end up turning him right over the shoulder with a more of a headlock throw type situation. But I turn and I land and immediately expand my hip into my opponent's armpit. So one last time. So here, Seth jumps by. I'm like, ah, crap. I'll push in. Maybe he starts to walk behind. I'm like, oh, thanks, buddy. Turn, come get me.
Can't lift you.
As long as I control this elbow, I'm going to be just fine. He reaches up from my back. I'm like, oh, thanks, boss. I'm on the other side, and we should be good to go. All right, guys. So now that we're going to move on to the inverted collar tie, which sometimes occurs on its own, other times occurs when your opponent manages to duck his head underneath your inside arm. So when I find myself here, again, I'm collar tying, blocking Seth. Other times, sometimes he'll just duck under. I'm like, what I should do, if you notice, if he ducks under and I stay here, it's not wrong, but there's a critical moment that it can go very, very badly, and mostly for me, probably good for Seth. So anyway, as he ducks under, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my hand to the inside. Can you drive forward, please? I have a check that I can walk off of. That's all that really matters. As I do this, my hips are going further and further away, away. And rather than going, if you'll notice last time, we were in position because we're on the near side to snap and redirect. This time, I don't have that luxury, but guess what's right here for me is the arm drag, one of the best moves in existence. So I'm checking my opponent. One way or another, he ducks. As I feel that, I make my transition. Notice how I'm starting to turn away a little bit. Drive towards me, please. It doesn't matter. I'm actually turning my hips towards Seth now, and what's holding me up is my left hand, right here. That's where I start to hit the ground. If you hit the ground, no worries. Just get yourself back up. As long as you keep your arm in between you and other guy, you're going to be fine. Jump and take my back. The second he lets go, I have all the space in the universe. If I stay here and go, let me put you in guard, yeah, maybe he gets a hold of me, but that's not the move's fault. That's my fault for being, making a really poor choice. As long as I keep this block between us, as we discussed in the prior clips, I can transition and get my defense back and start to be effective. So initially, again, my opponent is being blocked. He ducks behind. I'm going to rotate my arm inverted. As I walk away, his arms are going like out. The second that they open out, he's very likely to pull them back in. A good fighter is going to pull them back in. A poor fighter will keep his limbs exposed, but a good fighter is going to pull them back in. Whether he does or doesn't, I really don't care. As soon as this occurs, I'm going to my arm drag. So 1, 2, I walk away. I get my hips out, and I'm dragging him. Bringing my hips around the corner. We come back. The arm drag is a little bit of a misnomer. I'm not yanking this guy past me. Again, you're not dragging a grown adult man's weight with your arm when they don't want to have that happen. I'm blocking him so that he can't reach behind and stop me. So we're here. I go walk. Okay, now here, reach your right arm behind you in a way that's going to stop me getting around it. My hips go hip to hip. Immediately, I look to open and attack his neck. No-gi, it's much less feasible. People are very, very, very rarely open enough to get rear naked choke. What you can do is you can catch them, with the lapel. You can go to the back, you can go to the crucifix, or again, personal favorite. I turn him through, take his back, and then do whatever it is that seems to work at the time. So, again, anytime your opponent drops behind, just go 1, 2, use that check to walk off of, but recognize that you're looking for a feel that is the hands popping open. So one last time at game speed, we're here. I'm like, I'm holding on, he ducks behind, I'm like, okay. Move behind. Once you're here, you can do all that other good stuff that you probably know how to do. All right, guys. The next hack that I'm going to use off of this position is going to be the switch. And, ordinarily you see the switch done from, kind of a head outside single style position. But I think it's, in my experience, it's been very, very effective, with body lock style scenarios as well, and which is what we're facing here. So when my opponent passes my guard, again, here we are. He sins, I sit up as it goes. He ducks behind, and I go to my inverted collar tie if we rotate. So again, what part of my arm? Drive forward, please. So he's driving into my humerus. Nothing's happening. Watch, drive forward. Now I'm like, that. I feel handcuffed. Okay, so I feel like I'm having some success, but maybe Seth is circling around towards my legs. He's going to give me a hard time. I'm trying to get rid of this. I'm like, man, this is taking away a little bit of power from my arm, my collar tie. I feel like I'm having a hard time creating torque on his hands. Really, that's all I'm looking to do here, by the way, and that's what the switch is going to accomplish in this situation. I'm going to take my hand out and immediately reach as deep inside of my opponent's leg as I can. I'm palm up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to walk my hips away, and I'm going to key lock Seth's arm. Walk. You feel pressure?
Yep.
Now, again, Seth is being real nice. He's not taking his arm out, but when I do this for real, I'm going to try to break your arm. Hey, man, not in practice, but in tournament, dude, you shouldn't put your arm there. Can you take your arm out? You feel a key lock?
It's stuck.
Yeah, it sucks. So you can actually key lock your opponent. When you do this for real, you're very, very unlikely to actually have that outcome. But what is going to happen is they are going to get their arm out of there with the quickness. So I walk away, walk, and now, where's my pressure?
On me.
Correct. If I'm here with my weight on the ground, Seth can get up. And again, I've let his arm out right now just so it doesn't put too much pressure. But I'm here. Seth, can you sit up easily?
No.
What this is going to allow me to do is walk around behind and be in position. We circle to snap him off of his base, spiral ride him, get onto his back, open up his neck, all sorts of good things for me and not so good things for Seth. So again, I'm caught. He ducks under. I go to my collar tie. I'm like, I'm not feeling this. I reach as deep as I can. I'm walking my hips out, and sitting up. Now, I'm going to turn, getting my hips as close to Steph's as I can, snap him off of his base, just as we would show in the arm triangle, or rather the back attack series. I immediately go to his neck. Okay, his hand went to my defense. We have all sorts of different things we could do. Let's say you kept your left or your right hand posted. Your other hand. You could snatch it up and crucify. There's any number of different things we could do. You could throw, if we come back for a second, I could throw my leg over his arm, making sure that it's trapped. Kind of, again, goes beyond the scope of what we're doing today. But the idea is getting the field to go from 1 to 2 to 3 with your offense is going to be very, very important. So the switch is a shield unto itself, and I'm simply making yet another block in between me and other guys. I reach palm up in between me and him and walk off of it in a way that's going to force the key lock and really, really put a lot of torque on his shoulder, allowing me to get behind. All right, guys, so now we're going to see how we can utilize another, kind of very common, jiu-jitsu style grip, to attack our opponent when he's committed to this body lock position. Remember, we're starting in our guard, and as, we've discussed a number of times in the past, the guard has many layers to it, and traditionally, and oftentimes from a jiu-jitsu scoring perspective, we're encouraged to think of the guard only in terms of our legs, when the reality is that there's a lot more to your defense than just that. All of the best guard players that I know are very, very adept at utilizing, their arms to keep you off of them. You'll see a lot of that in wrestling as well, which, again, people don't think of wrestling as having a guard per se, but it most certainly does. People, they work off at the bottom in different ways and that are very, very effective. And grappling is grappling at the end of the day. You can score it this way, score it that way, but if you're controlling me and I'm not controlling you, what you're doing is just fine. So, again, let's say we have a scenario where Seth was all the way in my guard, and he's getting closer and closer and closer, and he's passing, and I'm sitting up, and I'm trying to keep him, but he ducks underneath, and I go to my inverted collar tie, but just not really feeling like I can make this happen. I might switch all the way over to a Kimura-style grip. Now notice, from here, before I go to the Kimura, Seth, can you come up to arm triangle me, please? No. If I'm loose like this, can you arm triangle me?
Yes.
Okay, what I'm doing is I'm sticking my gut over top of the bulk of his arm here, so that he does not just come and grab me up and immediately throw me to my back. Can you go to a seatbelt position right now?
No, I can't get my arm out.
Right, I'm not letting him get his arm out. This is absolutely critical. So we're going from our inverted collar tie, so pulling super tight, to here. And I'm trapping his arm with mine. My thigh is behind Seth's tricep. My humerus and my arm are wrapping around my thigh. And what I'm doing is I'm keeping his elbow separated from the rest of his body. It's very, very important. Drive me to the back, please. Okay, now, real quick, let's say, for instance, Seth decides to come and snatch my left arm off the mat with the inside of his. That's possible, and also the inside out. Exactly, he might try to catch me here. These are all concerns. So what I want to do is make sure I keep my hand far enough away, and also, anytime I feel him starting to fish from my hand, I'm going to rock into him and make him use it. So very, very important, making sure that we understand that as our opponent tries to go to his other defensive things, he starts reaching out for me. I'm going to make him use that hand up. Now I can actually get my defense back in. Remember, we're always waiting for our opponent to let go because we're preying on the fact that he's latched into this position. Now, with this Kimura-style grip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hip toss him. So Seth beats my guard. I sit up. He ducks behind. I go to my collar tie. I'm like, man, I trap his arm. Now, from here, very, very commonly, people try to sit up, try to pull you back in. I'm like, okay, great. And I'm working my way into a Kimura-style grip. Now, the Kimura, I don't even have the grip on his wrists yet, but it doesn't really matter because from here, I can start to drive back into him, and when he drives into me, I'm going to rise up and dump him over. Now, from here, if he doesn't step this foot up, he's gonna roll. What does this remind you of? Come get my back, please. You can do it, right?
No.
Why not?
My arm's trapped.
Correct. If I go, oh no, he's gonna get on my back. It won't. Now he's gonna get on my back. If we come back, provided that I keep his arm trapped, I'm going to be fine. And this is where you can start to really effectively look to Kimura your opponent. Coming back to the other side. And this isn't a series on the Kimura, but there's a lot that we could go into, you know, along that line. And it's a powerful control grip that you can learn about elsewhere. So what I'm doing is simply going to yet another defensive style of control. As he beats my legs, he beats the first layer, second layer, third layer. I'm like, oh man, he gets to do my defense. I check him with my collar tie. I check him with my inverted collar tie. I don't feel like that's getting the job done, so I let him even closer, but I trap his ability to go to my back. Super, super, super important. Something that some people will try when they don't realize that they're trapped here is they'll try to take your back. They'll try to like sit and jump to your back. And I'm like, oh, thanks for effectively throwing yourself. And I can get up on top with my Kimura style grip. So as long as I don't let Seth rise up and start to climb over top of my shoulders with his grips, I'm actually going to be okay here. So when you make that transition, just recognize that the guard that you use, whether it's with your arm or your legs, the layer that you're attacking your opponent with, which wall, is entirely dependent upon the amount of space that either A, you have, or B, if you're in control, the amount of space that you want your opponent to have. So all I'm really doing here is controlling the range between me and other guy, and what that's going to do is going to dictate the kind of branches of attacking choices that I have. All right, guys. The last thing that we're going to be doing from the inverted collar tie position is going to be, you know, attacking our opponent with the Kimura and then transitioning to the switch when he defends. So what I'm doing is I'm going from position of control to position of control. I'm actually a lot safer here than it looks initially. It's very, very important to understand that. So if, again, Seth bypassed my guard, I'm like, I checked him with my collar tie. He dropped behind. I went to my inverted collar tie. All right. Now I'm like, this isn't getting the job done, but I see an opening here attacking his free arm, and I'm looking for Kimura. I can peel the elbow, start to get my hand, hopefully not my own gi, through and look to control. Now again, if I stay flat on my back, what are some different options that I have? I could rock backwards in the same way that would have rolled him over before if he didn't let go. So when I want to go to Kimura, if Seth's hands are locked, I need to find a way to break this open. How can I accomplish this? All right, always ask yourself. Remember, jiu-jitsu is mostly about feel. Feel strain on your grip now? Mm-hmm. So we come back, I'm like, how about now? I'm like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hulk out and break his grip.
No way.
Very unlikely, exactly. Steph's just like, no way, it's not happening. But if I bring my butt out and create torque, now we've got something that I can start to try to use to control him. If we come back for a second, what's another way? I could, if we come back for a second, be lock up your hands, please, Seth. If we rotate a little bit so everybody can see, his head may be behind me, and I will try to plant it on the ground. I'm going to do it gently right now. But I'm going to say, hey, what can I do to see if I can get this guy to let go? And I go, wah-bum, up, he posts. Now my hips come out, and I can look to attack with Kimura. Again, am I likely to finish Seth? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm absolutely going to get myself out of here. So if we come back one more time, I'm latched on. Can you come to my back, please? It's going to be tough. If you start to reach for my back, see how high he has to get up? I can chuck him. I'm in the space between his elbow and in the space in his armpit. So I'm actually okay here, as long as I don't do anything really dumb, like letting him get a hold of my lapel. But it takes subtlety and it takes calm to be able to use these positions. But what we need to do is be able to have the trust in them and just play around and start to get the feel for it. Because in the beginning, you know, you're walking a very fine line with these, and these are, you know, a very, very important part of my game, speaking personally. But at the same time, you know, if you're very, very close to danger at all times, the beauty of that, which it means, is that you're very, very close to countering your opponent at almost all times. But I have to recognize the danger of being here. So we're, again, on the initial, then we're 1, 2, I trap Seth's arm. I'm like, man, I can't get the Kimura. I'm having a hard time. Walk my hip out. I'm like, okay, now we got it. Maybe he latches his hands up again. I'm like, okay. I rock back to my back. He posts. If we come back for a second, if you don't post, I could find myself on the other side, walking all the way over. If we come back one more time, I'm trying to move him. I rock. I'm like, I'm not feeling this. Wait, what's that? The switch. I reach all the way in, and if you notice, Seth, could you describe the feeling on your shoulder right now? So do you feel tight or loose?
Loose.
Loose. This is no good. See, I'm starting to sit forward. What this does is this, one, pinches his humerus and makes it difficult for it to get away. But two, I'm getting my hips away from my, so right now I'm stacked up, shoulders over hips. So as a man, more of my mass is in my shoulders. If you're a woman, more of your weight is going to be in your hips than your shoulders, most likely. But the idea is, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, the massive majority of your weight is here and here. And what I want to do is move it in opposition. Because right now, my shoulders are right over top of my messed up, broken, weird pinky. And it, well, all right, which represents my hips. And that means I'm kind of stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sling my hips out and bring my shoulders forward like a hammer. So if we come back, I'm like, man, okay, as I lean, can you get your arm out now?
No.
Do I feel heavy now?
No.
All my mass is in the ground. It's no good. How about now?
Yes.
And I can immediately move behind and then go to my sweet harness flip move, go to the guillotine, go to the crucifix, go to whatever, you know, whatever it is that floats your boat. But the idea is you're utilizing very, very similar ideas in each of these situations. You're making your opponent's arms go here, 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 here. And I'm not doing it by yanking around. I'm simply doing it by leaning on this guy. So watch, can you latch my hips in for a second? I'm just like, okay, watch this. I'm leaning and I'm walking away. All of the thrashing around that I could have done right up next to him would be damn near useless. This is kind of the equivalent of a sprawl type position where you're taking your hips further and further away from your opponent and their grip is just slipping little by little by little. You're going to be able to make the transitions between all of these grips and all of these offensive positions pretty readily if you can get your hips away. All right, guys, the last positions that we're going to be utilizing for right now are going to be the kind of over gripping, whether it's on the belt or the whizzer position. Now, obviously, you know, the on the belt grip does not exist without the gi on. You know, I use these positions all gi, no gi, you know, equally. But when we have the addition of the belt, it does give us, you know, quite a bit of leeway to be able to really extend our arm and not have to commit it the same way. What I want you guys to think about is no different than, you know, when you're using the collar tie or anything else. We just have to be a little bit more subtle with the whizzer style position because it is powerful. But the downside is I don't have the same luxury of making the guy fall. You know, where when Seth was trusting me here and I go, well, I want when he falls into position, I use that to off balance him, which is great. When I'm already connected to him, if you'll notice right now, I feel kind of like blah, like you feel you can just drive me over or something. My hips in. I'm like, see, I'm hunched over. Okay, now do it feel different structurally?
Yes.
More powerful?
Yes.
How about now?
No.
Ugh. Okay, so I feel much more powerful right now. Super important. Now, my arm is in a whizzer position, just kind of draped. So if you sit up for a second, dude. So if we're here, my arm is just draped. Something that we've been playing with, thank you, Matthew Miller, from up in Canada, a fantastic wrestler who said, hey, why don't you try gripping the inside of the lapel? You get all of the awesome benefits of that whizzer without having to commit your hand in there in a way that particularly in the gi people can latch onto. Is it a concern in this position? Not quite as much, but this is pretty cool and you can use it here. I'm not very good at it, so I don't, but it absolutely could be done, and Matt's whizzer is about 10,000 times better than mine. But anyway, the point remains, I can play on the belt, but what I'm looking to do here is create pressure with a straight back. Can you get your head out to the backside, Steph?
No.
How about now? Ugh, that's bad. You do not want to be kind of Johnny Noodle Legs over here. What I'm looking to do now is create the same type of problems for Seth with instability by taking, here's my shoulders and my elbow is my hips, and moving them in opposition to one another. So I'm like, okay, I can get my hips underneath him if I want to pull him just by bringing my shoulders away. So let me lean on him a little bit. If you drive back in, I can pull him. Now, he may decide he likes that, he may not, but the idea is whether or not, I just want you guys to think about how you can move this person. Now, let's say I got an idea. I'm going to lean my upper body towards Seth as I walk my lower body away. What does that do to your grip?
Puts a strain on it.
Am I trying super hard?
No.
Who can sit here longer?
You.
Yeah, for me, for sure. I'm just chilling. I'm leaning on this guy. So it's not really doing a whole lot for me, you know, not costing me much, but it's costing, you know, Seth some energy consumption there. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the exact same movements as before with our collar tie, only I'm going to do them, you know, utilizing my overstyle grip. So Seth's in good base. You come in real close. You get his knees real close to me. I'm like, man, there's no way I'm tossing him. If you see, his base is too strong. I'm not going to be able to hip toss him or anything like that. But if I can drive in and then walk away and then hop backwards, again, with my back roll position, I can start to off balance him. Now, if Seth doesn't want to go all the way over, but also doesn't want to let go, as I back roll, he might lean forward, and I say, oh, thanks, boss. And all I do is I rotate my feet out of the way, disappearing. Because if you drive towards my feet, Seth, so my feet actually hold him up. Watch this. Drive that way now. I'm like, oh, thanks, buddy. And I can turn him right over. So, from here, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just creating much more subtle pressure. Honestly, it takes more skill to do this kind of stuff, but you guys can absolutely do it. It just takes a little practice. These are the things that came to me last. Not to say that you won't pick them up more quickly than I did, just that it took the longest because there's the least amount of extra room for error. I'm walking away. Seth's driving in. I'm like, oh, great. And I can chuck him if we come back one more time. Over this way. Same thing. If you walk your hips towards my feet, I'm like, oh, let me start to knock him over. And he goes, no, and he drives into me. I say, thank you very much. And I can walk the other direction. So even without breaking our opponent's grip, which we most certainly can do and will do going forward, I'm actually able to chuck him pretty effectively. This is a position you'll see jiu-jitsu players misutilize on the feet a lot. And when I say jiu-jitsu players, I mean, I count myself among them. I've tried to really, particularly since getting into MMA, made a very, very concerted effort to learn how to wrestle better. I tried to do that when I was in jiu-jitsu, but didn't really have the resources. But you'll see that all the time where people latch on with a body lock out of position, and that is a recipe for a throw. All I'm doing is I'm effectively throwing you while we're on the ground, because really Seth should not be latching onto me here, but it seems the thing to do. All right, guys, the next movement that we're going to be utilizing here is one that we discussed in the beginning of the series, but actually is going to become a much bigger part of the end of the series, but we're going to touch on right now, which is going to be the Granby roll. What I'm going to do here is take advantage of the fact that my opponent is reaching around me. When he reaches around me, his elbow opens up by definition. Now, if he keeps his elbows really, really close, it can be, more difficult to get him, but particularly the more tired they get, the more out of position, and also the more, pressure that I can put on my opponent, the more likely he is to find himself in a situation where he's stretched out, holding on to me like this. Well, I love when that happens, because I'm going to effectively throw you with my hips. And here's how it's going to work. So, same deal. Seth's passing my guard. He gets through the first layers. He drives back. I'm like, oh, man, this is not what I wanted. Well, whether I screw up or whether I get kind of cool and I start to recognize just how safe I can actually be in these positions. Oh, yeah, by the way, if I'm here, go to take my back, please, Seth. Uh-oh, say it climbs up. Well, now it's a problem. Can we come back for a second? Okay, do me a favor. Do that again now. Have you ever wondered why in MMA the guys are really good at not getting their back taken here? It's because of wrestling. I don't know why it hasn't caught on much in jiu-jitsu yet, but it should and it will. You jump the hooks on my back, please, dude? Yeah, go nuts.
Yeah,
I can get up, I can get out. There's a lot more to this than what we can show right now. But the basic idea is, look, as long as I don't let you climb up over me, you ain't get on my back. So what I'm going to do here is go from my whizzer or over gripping style situation, and I'm going to let Seth's head out the back, and I'm going to mark his hands. It is absolutely critical that I mark his hands. Now, what pressure are you feeling right now?
Just like your hips are sliding away from me, and you're just keeping my hands connected to you.
Correct. If you pull my hips all the way underneath you, I'm like, can't move very well. This sucks. So what do? I don't go, how do I move, and start spazzing out, because I can't out-spaz Seth. He's sitting on top, and he's bigger and stronger than I am anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep his hands here, and again, I'm not squeezing my ass off. I'm creating downward pressure. I'm going to walk my hips away, and what this does is, again, if my spine is in alignment, bringing my hips away makes my shoulders heavy on Seth. You drive into me, please, so I can lean on. Now, with his elbows sufficiently away from his body, particularly if we rotate this, and I'm like, all right, you are screwed, son. I'm going to start to move out to my right side, and I'm going to Granby roll. My hips are going to hit Seth behind the elbow. If he holds on, it's fine. If you notice, as soon as I get him to his back, what am I looking for? See the same pocket? I'm like, aha, there it is. Come get my back again, please.
Can't.
I think I will make base camp here and head for the summit in the morning. And then I'll try to do my best Josh Barnett impersonation or something like that, or Sergio Pena, even better. But the idea is getting used to these positions where you recognize that, again, you walk a razor's edge, because if you screw this up, they can most certainly get on your back. If you're mediocre at this and they're a really high-level black belt, the likelihood of this working out well for you is, I'll be honest, not very, very high. However, if you understand how the position works and you start to play, you can absolutely make this happen. So what I'm doing is I'm utilizing my Granby, I'm going over my shoulder, I'm keeping my hands locked, and I'm here. My hips are catching my opponent's elbow and forcing him to roll. Now, a lot of times they're not even going to be able to let go if they want to. Can I borrow a second? But, and I can do this whether it's one arm or two. Let's say you have only one arm. Notice I'm gripping his elbow, and I'm not ripping it open with my hand. It's not necessary, but I'm opening and forcing him to roll. He tries to turn. Which direction are you going to turn?
Try to pull my arm out.
You do me a favor and turn away. It's not going to happen. Which way are you going to turn again?
Turn in.
Fantastic. Can jump to the other side and make this happen. So, one last time. Just want you guys to start to get comfortable with these positions. Oh yeah, and here's the other thing. If as I go, he just lets go and magically gets out, I'm like, oh, okay, great, fantastic. My guard is back. So during this whole thing, they're much more likely to just rip their arms out and let go, no gi. But you can make it happen in the gi as well. So one last time, Seth goes behind. I'm like, ah, crap. I'm leaning. I'm like, ah, that's the open elbow. Granby. Force them to roll. Make sure that you catch them. If they're not paying any attention, they haven't locked their hands, you could probably just get yourself out of there. But in all likelihood, you're going to have to go to the headlock position. So I hope that one works out.